The base is dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's a Friday. We got a lot of things to jump around with on a Friday show. Contributor Nyle and John will take you through the weekend in England here coming up in just a bit. Mike Conti is playing the role of Randy McMichael today on 92.9 The Game. So no Mike today. He'll be back with us next week. But hour number 2, and I want you guys to start thinking of your questions and dropping them in after our England segment. So about 9:45, 9:50-ish. What are your biggest questions about Major League Soccer in 2022? You got teams that are going to be meeting for the first times this weekend. You've got some teams that are already on the training pitch. You've got everything ramping up. There's all kinds of rumors and news we're going to get into here in just a bit. But I want your biggest questions going into the 2022 season. Got a bunch of games going on this weekend to talk about as well. But guys, let's start with some of the talk in MLS, some of the latest news that has happened over the past couple of days. As we were told by our good friend Nico Moreno yesterday, Albert Rusnak, probably the top player available on the free agent list, designated player at Real Salt Lake. He will be a designated player with the Seattle Sounders, a 2-year deal option for a 3rd year. Jarrett, Rusnak's a player I know you've always been a big fan of. This is a different situation where it's not that RSL doesn't have expectations, but they don't maybe have the same expectations as a Seattle. Seattle now with Rusnak is probably near that top of the list in terms of favorites to win MLS Cup.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you want to see if it's your team. Not only are you getting better, but you're taking something away from someone who stuck a thorn in your paw a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. When it comes to interleague moves, when you can detract from someone and make yourself better, that is a happy face sticker that gets put on your trapper keeper if we're still using those. I still am a fan of Rusnak. I think it takes some of the pressure off of guys like a Nicoladero who's getting up there, getting a little long in the tooth. Seattle is, we talked about this 2 years ago. Seattle is to the point now that they've started doing it, starting to get younger because some of those guys, the mainstays, were getting a little older to the point of they can still produce, don't get me wrong, but you might not get 35 good games out of them because their legs just can't do it as consistently. And I think Rusnak is late 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
27.
20s or 20, yeah, 27. So, I mean, it's a great move for them. And now if you're RSL, what do? You got an open spot. What do you want to go get? You got a new owner coming in. How much do they want to spend? How much of a splash do they want to make?
John, what you think about Rusnak going to Seattle?
You add Rusnak into the idea of Ladero, Rui Diaz, a healthy Jordan Morris, João Paulo, all of these weapons, and to have all of this depth coming at you. I have them pretty much as one of those at the top of the ladder in the West. And, as Jarrett says, when you can take a weapon away from someone else that was chasing after what you were chasing after in the West, for you, that's always a good thing when your opponent has one less weapon, it ends up under your umbrella. So obviously we've been talking about this for a little bit, but I love the idea of Rusnak heading into Seattle, and I've got them at pretty much the top of the ladder in the West.
Yeah, I don't think Seattle looks at RSL as a rival and they're trying to take somebody away from them, but it's a nice little bonus of it because RSL knocked them out of the postseason last time with no shots at all. Rusnak was a player who was in high demand. So, I mean, there was a question on the Twitch pitch from Rack about probably taking less money to take this deal. I don't know what RSL offered. There is a cap in any MLS free agent and how much of a raise they can get. But with multiple teams that were interested in Rusnak, I know DC was linked to him at one point. There was also the potential of, I think, Boca Juniors at one point, and maybe a wild, crazy rumor out of Argentina. I don't think he took less money to go to Seattle. I think he would have had his decisions. Now, maybe he took less than what RSL could have offered, but I don't know if RSL offered that. RSL's in the midst of an ownership transition. I don't know where they felt on that. It's a tough one for them because now they really hit on that combination with Krylak and Rusnak. lot of debate now. And as we see when anybody moves, of course, then some of the fans turn on that player. Some of the fans get angry at the club. It's kind of tough if you're RSL to watch a guy go to Seattle, but it's also something where you do have to, I think, factor in the differences between the Seattle Sounders and Real Salt Lake. They're two different clubs with different ambitions. And for a player who has been very, very good in this league, maybe one of the more underrated top guys. I wouldn't say he's underrated in general, but out of designated players, maybe he's one of the more underrated ones. Now let's see if he can raise that game. But with Seattle, it's a question for me as to how they're going to look. Because we saw them go 3-5-2 a lot last year. I don't think that's on the cards now with Jordan Morris back, with Leo Chu into the mix. So you're looking at a front six. Let's leave the back line alone right now. Alex Roldan is expected to sign a new deal that could be announced today. You got Brad Smith and Jimmy Medranda on the left. You've got Nuhu. You've got Yamar. You've got Arriaga. You've got plenty of options on the back line. They're handled. Stephen Fry, you're good. So the front six, you've got Joao Paulo. You've got Nico Ladero. You've got Christian Roldan. You've got Leo Chu. You've got Jordan Morris. You've got Albert Rusnak. You've got Raul Ruiz-Diaz. Wait a minute, that's 7. How is it going to get sorted out? And as we see in this league, is this a question where you have a really good piece of depth and you're going to rotate guys and you're going to try to keep everybody happy? You can do that with a player like Christian Roldan because he can play the 6, the 8, the 10. He can play out wide. He can be your kind of your rover guy who fills in for everybody. Everybody gets to get rotated out. Does Ladero become more of an 8 as opposed to a 10 with Rusnak as more of a 10 because he's a little more boxed in where he plays? Leo Chu, Jordan Morris out wide. I think that's pretty consistent, but you do have a Roldan. You do have some others who can spell them. That's 7 starting level players for 6 spots. And even with the 6 spots, which is a very good front 6, Joao Paulo, Nico Ladero, and or Christian Roldan, and or Albert Rusnak. That is your 3 central midfielders. We've had this conversation about LAFC before. There comes a time where you're able to control games with that front 3. You're good. You're fine. As we saw with LAFC at times when Edward Atuesta was playing the 6, they could get overrun by the opposition in those positions sometimes. It can. So how does Brian Schmetzer handle that? And that's what we're going to see out of him this year. That's my question about it. It's never bad to add more talent, but how do you make the pieces fit? Or are you looking at other moves correspondingly? And I don't know about that. I don't know who would be on the block. I don't think Joao Paulo or Leo Chu, who you just added, or Jordan Morris would be on the block. Raul Ruiz-Diaz is the front runner. You can't really replace him with any of the other guys. It'll be interesting to watch how they manage it. And it'll be interesting to watch how they handle good attacking teams in the middle of the park, because that front 6, 7, as talented as they are, not a ton of defensive midfield ability out of that group. Be very, very interesting to watch. All right, Albert Rusnak in Seattle. Again, Alex Roldan should be signing his new deal there today. He might have already signed it. It just might not be announced yet. That should be done anytime now. Toronto FC is the other one that we're trying to figure out how the pieces fit. They have, at least they're expected to have another open designated player spot that they're going to want to fill. They've been linked to Andrea Bellotti out of Serie A. They have also been linked, and this is an interesting one, with Dries Mertens of Napoli. Another Napoli player to go with his former teammate Lorenzo Insigne. He is out of contract at the end of the year. Napoli's not going to exercise the renewal that they have for him. I don't know if it's a true option or what, but according to reports, they're not going to offer it. He would be willing to take a good deal to stay at Napoli, but that has not been offered right now. And the club has made their decision and sounds like they're not going to go back on it. Toronto had talked to Mertens a few months ago. There was interest. Mertens wanted to stay with Napoli, so he wanted to play all his cards there. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Those talks could resume. Be curious to see if Toronto would prioritize Mertens or Bellotti. Reportedly, there are conversations, or there could be conversations with both. Toronto, John, is going to be, probably the story once we get into the summer. I don't even know how much it matters about where Toronto finishes in the table this year, because the first half of the year, you're not going to have Insigne. You do have questions defensively. They're going to be a handful in the second half. What else are you waiting to see out of Toronto as we get closer to them opening up camp?
I look at, how you're going to get to July. Is it the younger players that we saw at the end of the year, and what it's going to look like? I mean, I don't know if it's short-sighted on my part, but I'm almost taking everything to July as a wash, and Bob Bradley's going to do whatever he can do to get the best out of whoever's there. Just get to July when everybody shows up, and then it's going to be alleged gangbusters offensively with whoever comes in. And
I don't think they're making these moves just to win this year, though, and I think that should be understood here as part of this conversation. I mean, Insigne's on a long-term deal.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the same at 37 as he is at 31, but he's on a long-term deal. I would assume whoever else they sign. Belotti's 28. If they get that done, that's massive. Mertens a little bit older, but he's going to have a few years in him. I think this is just first step. I don't even think that it's about, okay, how do we grind this out to get a trophy this year? We have to get a trophy this year. It's a trophy or bust. I don't think that's the mentality. I think it's, all right, we can't get these guys till July. Do the best we can until then. Let's see what we can get once we get them. Next season, I think, is far more of a, we're paying for trophies. We need to see some trophies.
And, when Dries Mertens and Belotti see what Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment gave to bring in, a player of Insigne's quality, and they're seeing what's going on with their front offices and lack of negotiations, or just, it's like, okay, here's the deal, and here's, we're not going to go past this point, or here's our parameters. And I mean, if I'm Belotti and Mertens and I'm their agents or their representative, and I see what Insigne got, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so they're a player, and I mean that in the financial sense, in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So Toronto FC is going to come to the table, and if they're willing to do what they're willing to do with Insigne as a part of this greater plan that Bill Manning was talking about with TFC Live over the next 5 or 6 years, getting through 2026, I could see whoever that they're bringing in this offseason leading in toward this year and / July as being those cornerstones to get them to 2026 with this run that they're envisioning of chasing after trophies starting in the 23 season. They're looking at 23, 4, 5, and 6 as this fantastic run, and bringing in a lot of these folks from Serie A, if we're talking specifically, Belotti and Mertens, as a part of that group. So it's, for me, I'm looking at the outlay from MLSD and what they're willing to spend to bank on their future from July of 22 and beyond.
Yeah, but it's not that simple. And we know that in this league. And Jared, I want to get your thoughts on this too. Like, it's not just, they're going to spend a lot of money, so everything's fixed. Well, you can only spend it on 3 guys plus 3 U22s. So no, having 3 great designated players doesn't guarantee you anything, really. You've got to get other pieces right, and they've got to get some other things right about that roster, because it's not where it needs to be if you have Belotti and Insigne on top. You're not going to get Mertens and Belotti. Like, you're not going to be able to pull both off. Let's make that clear too. So you've got Pozuelo. You've got Insigne coming in the summer. You're going to get somebody else to come probably in the summer, it looks like, because they're going down the road. Instead of paying a large transfer, they're going to pay a large salary for guys who are out of contract. Okay. There's no guarantee that they win with that. Now, they have, and a different scale, different league at the time, but they did in 2017, where they had 3 high-priced designated players who are among the best players in the league at their positions, and they won, but they had a great supporting cast. And when you look at that 2017 Toronto team, and you take away Bradley, Giovinco, Altidore, and what they did that season, and you look at what they got out of Bono and goal, you look at what they got out of Delgado and Osorio, two of the more underrated central midfielders in the league. You look at what they got defensively. They added Mavinga that year. He got really good as the year went on. Drew Moore was outstanding. Guys who were not high-priced guys ended up really making the difference for that team. They're going to need that again, and I don't think that roster is anywhere near it. I mean, Jared, is Toronto just going to be the great soap opera of 2022 and beyond in the MLS Eastern Conference?
Maybe. I mean, soap opera is a fluid term to use here, in my opinion, because we don't know if that's going to be a good or a bad thing. They could be an insanely high-powered team that's, I don't know, kind of boring, to like, hey, they're going to score a bunch of goals, but there's not a lot of off-the-field drama necessarily.
Yeah. I don't mean soap opera like that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they just kind of are what they are. They're going to score a lot of goals. They might give up goals, but I mean, I think we're seeing more teams that are kind of looking at that idea of, hey, how are we going to approach this? Well, we can either, sit back deep and look for something, or we can load up on offensive talent and go for it and take some chances at the back and ask our defenders to be really good. And I mean, you saw Atlanta do that in the past. You see them do it still. When you push guys forward, it creates opportunities, and especially with the speed that this league features. And this is a feature, not a bug of MLS, has been for a while. When you bring in especially a lot of younger players, you still have a very intense amount of speed for those opportunities, and it's the teams that can not just get out, sit back and counter, but the teams that if you're bringing two guns to a gunfight, who can capitalize on those mistakes at times when things do get opened up, and it could make for some really fun games. Imagine, you get Toronto and Atlanta in Toronto this year. What that's going to look like, because aside from the Red Bulls game last year, which Jason is still actively laughing about in New York or New Jersey, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Aside from that, we've never really seen Atlanta afraid to go into a place and attack. I don't think we'll see New York City be afraid to go into a place and attack. And more teams are, I think, in that mindset. Charlotte, I imagine, will be on the front foot when they can. LAFC still has their mentality that they're not going to be able to shake. So yeah, I hope to see plenty of it where more teams go into someone else's house and say, hey, let's go take the fight, and let's set the line of confrontation further up the field in the 18-yard box.
Let me rephrase. I wouldn't say soap opera. Let me say circus then, because I think it's going to be exciting whenever Toronto comes to town for anybody in the league with this kind of talent. Because you're right. I mean, and it just comes down to the way MLS is structured. You are going to spend more money on the attacking side of your team as opposed to the defensive side. Now, let's not get it twisted. Like, these guys are going to have defensive responsibilities, and attackers have to be able to defend even if it's 80 yards away from your own goal. It's just the way the game's played these days. But you're signing these guys to do things on the attacking half of the field far more than the defensive half. So the most of your outlay, most of your money, most of your impact is going to be on that side of the field. And that's across the league, but some teams are able to find a balance. Toronto right now doesn't have much of that, but it's the beginning of this process. And as Bill Manning and others in Toronto have pointed out, this is an important element for Toronto that I think is unique to the Toronto market, in that they needed buzz. It reminds me a little bit of when DC United went out and signed Wayne Rooney, and people had their opinions about it, like, oh, he's too old, blah, 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 blah. DC was opening a new stadium. They needed something to be noticed in that market, which is a very crowded sports market. They got noticed with Wayne Rooney. Now, it was fleeting. It didn't last. That was, really nobody could predict the way things would go down and how the family would want to go back to England, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was mission accomplished with the interest that they generated. Lorenzo Insigne will get that interest in Toronto. They have a large Italian population. Across the league, is he on the same line as a Chicharito and a Vela? I don't think he is in terms of off-the-field interest. I think across the league, you have far more markets that have a large Mexican-American or Mexican population that are going to come out to either cheer on or boo those guys, depending on how you feel about your local team. That's going to happen. It's not going to be quite as big with that with Insigne in some markets, and that's okay. In Toronto, they needed to be bigger. They needed to be more relevant. They're competing with the Raptors. They're competing with the Blue Jays. They're competing with the Argonauts. They're competing with the Maple Leafs. They have a lot to deal with, and with recent performances, they've kind of fallen off a little bit in that pecking order. Well, that's done changed with Lorenzo Insigne coming to town, and whoever else comes to town is going to ride that coattail, and it's going to be really interesting to watch how this shakes out in Toronto. I'm fascinated by it, just like, I was fascinated by what the LA Galaxy did when they were going to get these kinds of guys and your David Beckhams and your Robbie Keanes and what that group would look like and how it would play out. And you got great performances in their, top years from, AJ De La Garza, from Omar Gonzalez, from Juninho, not the famous Juninho, a different Juninho, but who was really good in this league. You got those performances that were able to do some of the dirty work. The comparison is always, you have piano players and you have piano carriers. You need to get the right piano carriers here, because you got some great piano players with Insigne, with whoever else the other designated player is going to be. It's going to be exciting to see, but you need some people to do the other stuff, and you got to get those right if you're going to ultimately win the big prize. You're going to be relevant, you're going to be exciting, you're going to get talked about with the star power, but are you going to win? Because as we said yesterday, as we were talking through, what it takes in this league, you can do a lot of things to get buzz. You can do a lot of things to get people to buy a ticket, to buy a jersey, to get interested. Ultimately, if you want to keep them interested, you got to win. You got to win, Jarrett. That's what it comes down to. Final words from you, Jarrett, before we get into England. I think you're going to join us in hour number 2, though, as we come back to MLS in 2022.
That's the game plan. But no, the bottom line is, you've got to win an MLS to keep interest. This is the thing that's brought up with every team that gets hot and draws attention. Of you look down the comments anytime someone happens. LAFC, Atlanta United, whether it's Charlotte this year, whoever it may be, the comments will always be, well, what happens when they're not winning every game? No one will show up. This, that, and the other. Yeah, well, first of all, people are allowed. You must have missed the memo where let people enjoy things. It's okay. You must be a blast to be at parties with.
That's not allowed.
But yeah, you're going to have to win, and you're going to score goals, and that's what people want to see. Toronto might very well put together a really underrated defense and be a lot of fun, and that would be really interesting to see, because Toronto, after all their years of just in MLS and then making the Cup a number of years in a row, and man, early Toronto was a grind. My respect to the Toronto fans that stuck it out, because there were some dark ages there, Ben.
The highlight for years was chucking seat cushions on the field after a goal. That was like the highlight for about 5 years.
About the last thing that was a highlight before, as things were turning good for me, was when they played against Montreal in the playoffs, and somebody forgot how to count, and the penalty box was the wrong size. That was my favorite one, personally. And then when you looked at the overhead shot, it was very clear. Like, oh, no, you could eyeball that and tell something was wrong. This is ridiculous. But after everything they've been through and everything they've seen with growth, Toronto might be the ones to put to the test. Hey, fans, how do you feel about every game being 4-3?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. When you have that kind of attacking talent, you can control games with it and keep possession.
Mm-hmm.
That really hasn't been as much of what Bradley's LAFC teams looked like in terms of keeping possession to keep control. But we'll see. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be a fun circus to follow. All right, Jarrett, we'll talk to you in hour number 2, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Adios. Okay, let me get John back. Jarrett left on his own. Let me get Nyle into the mix right now. What's up, Nyle? How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are good. You guys are going to take everybody through the upcoming weekend in, I guess just the Prem or maybe the Prem and beyond. I have no idea. This is John and Nile's segment now. So they're going to take it away right now. Go.
It is time to catch up with everything going on in the Prem. And if we have time, we'll catch up with a couple of pieces of news out of the championship. But Nyle, I guess let's start with the news involving the Premier League and a match that is not going to happen before we get into the matches that are this morning. Burnley and Leicester is off the board, and it is now Burnley's fourth match that has been postponed. It's the first time that they've requested the match be postponed. It was granted. They didn't have the 13 position players and the one keeper. And it presents a bit of an issue now for Burnley because they were supposed to play Watford as a part of the relegation round robin that's going to happen in the next week. That's supposed to be set for Tuesday. This could be a bit of a cascading issue for Burnley down the line as if they didn't have any already.
Yeah, I mean, also they're in a battle against relegation, so nothing's really going well at the moment. They just lost a key player in Chris Wood for them, and they were very upset about that. But yeah, it's definitely not the ideal situation, especially with COVID. It's derailing everything, especially for these clubs that are struggling to escape from relegation. So it kind of puts like a sort of a barrier that like is hard to really address. So,
and it appears that one of the names being mentioned to be the new Chris Wood is Andy Carroll, who's currently at Reading. We'll keep an eye on that as we go. You had a marquee game that you wanted to focus on here in the first little bit. So what's your marquee game of the weekend? Although there is a very good 1B that we'll get into after this one. What's your 1A for this week?
Yeah, my 1A is Manchester City versus Chelsea. It's obvious why this is a big match. It's massive implications for the title race. If City beats Chelsea, they will have an insurmountable pretty much 13-point lead at the top, which is a pretty big lead, especially with double digits. However, if Chelsea can beat City, though, they would be 7 points behind City and would be a game in hand. So there would still be some fight in the title race, perhaps. This is an even tougher challenge for Chelsea playing City at the Etihad. Because Chelsea will have to be, able to impose themselves on City away from home, because this is a game that Chelsea will have to win. They will also need to be able to defensively deal with the attacking threat of City. This will certainly be a challenge for them, as defensively lately they've been a bit leaky. They've conceded 12 goals in their last 9 Premier League games, and Chelsea will need to be doing well also on the front foot and also defensively, so a bit of balance in order for them to be able to have the best chance of getting a huge 3 points. They will also need to be on their A game. The performance of players such as Lukaku, Rudiger, Mount, and Conte will be crucial. Lukaku, I think, is the storyline, because if he can put on a good performance against City, it'll kind of do him favors of brushing off even more at the upset that he caused with Chelsea. There are defensive vulnerabilities City has as well that Chelsea can exploit. This will be no easy cakewalk for City, though, as well, though. Even with a 10-point lead at the top, City will obviously want to extend their lead on the top to 13 points. But however, not being at their best, you can easily have your lead slip to 7 points, which is not ideal. Along with things that are not ideal, City could be missing crucial players. Mahrez is with Algeria for the African Cup of Nations. Phil Foden tested positive for COVID ahead of City's match against Swindon, and Raheem Sterling was not part of the squad for City's match against Swindon as well. So players such as Gabriel Jesus will have to step up with these absences as well, and City will need to make sure that they are the ones that are imposing at home and not Chelsea, because Chelsea will, of course, be determined if they want to get 3 points here. The winner between these two sides, I think, could be determined by whoever can put on a good display offensively and also defensively in this match. The winner will have to be dominant throughout the match and come out on the front foot from the start. So, yeah.
All right, so I'll ask you, Michael Head has a quick question for us on the Twitch pitch, but a couple of other things. Andreas Christensen has tested positive for COVID-19. He's now isolating, and Thomas Tuchel has said that they could be getting both Thiago and Conte back in contention to play, but only after one training session. Michael Head asking on the Twitch pitch, does Chelsea have a chance?
I think they do have a chance, because this is a City team that that is lacking some options. Like I said before, Riyad Mahrez is at the African Cup of Nations, and Phil Foden uncertain about because he tested positive ahead of the match against Swindon. Raheem Sterling, not sure about his availability. So yeah, there is a chance for Chelsea, but it's not as big as a chance as maybe for it would be with any other team, because this is City after all that we're talking about. So yeah, Chelsea will certainly have a chance, but they will need to be very much like opportunistic with their chance. They'll have to take it.
So you're saying there's a chance. That's
Yes.
what we're looking for from 1A. 1B, I think, is Arsenal and Spurs. Reports are that you won't have Young-min Son available for the match if you're Antonio Conte. He has made requests for players in this January window, not necessarily a surprise. What's your thought on 1B?
This is also a big match. This is a big match, big implications for top four. Tottenham, of course, will want to get a win here, especially I believe they're playing at home as well. So that will be certainly a match that they're looking to win, especially against their rivals in the London Derby. This is an interesting match because Arsenal as well are coming off a performance yesterday. They tied 0-0 to Liverpool, and they actually played pretty well, apart from Xhaka getting sent off with the red card. Arsenal did well in terms of, I feel like Saka was one of their standout players. He's been really impressive to me in terms of Arsenal and their attack.
But you don't know which one of those you're going to get. You don't know which version of Xhaka you're going to get in any given day. You get the one that goes mental walkabout like yesterday, and then you get the one that is absolutely on fire.
Yeah. I'm talking about Bukayo Saka. My bad, but Saka, okay. Yes. He, of course, that's certainly a problem that Arsenal will have to. That Arsenal will have to address. He certainly probably needs to get better with that, because yesterday, that was a clear red card on Jota. My bias is not there, but is there as well, but obviously it is a red card. So yeah, that's something that certainly Arsenal can't do in this match against Tottenham. They have to be defensively astute. They have to be pretty much very cautious with what they do. And yeah, like personally, I think it's very much down to whoever, like I said, with Chelsea and City, whoever's the more dominant team, whoever's the more balanced. And I think Tottenham will have a lot to fight for. Arsenal, of course, I think will have a lot to fight for as well. Like I said, with their impressive 0-0 draw against Liverpool, especially when being down to 10 men. So I think, honestly, this is going to be a close one to call, but it's going to be a good match in that sense, as both teams will be fighting for 3 points, and you wouldn't really know what to expect.
And yes, Jason, it does get confusing with Xhaka and Saka, and yes, Laka does get confusing. So I know that folks are asking for juice boxes as a part of this as well. And as we go here right now, Manchester City is minus 139 in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Draws plus 286. Chelsea is a plus 416 heading into the weekend. Tottenham and Arsenal right now. Tottenham is a plus 136. Your draw is a plus 233. And Arsenal is a plus 223. One other game on tomorrow that I want to do a really quick note on. Cristiano Ronaldo and Harry Maguire apparently are both saying that they are fit for Manchester United and Aston Villa. What are some of the other news and players to watch for the weekend from you?
Okay, so I have four players to watch, actually. One of them, I think this is no surprise, is Romelu Lukaku. Like I said before, he will be, crucial for Chelsea in their attempt to get, 3 points against City. The question is, can he put on a good performance and be able to brush off even more the recent upset that he caused at Chelsea? I think with a match like this, there is always time for somebody to step up, and I think Romelu Lukaku, if he can be that player, I think it will do well for him and also for Chelsea. Another player, I think, is N'Golo Kante. This is a player that has been consistently one of Chelsea's best. He'll be relied on to help Chelsea be effective with their possession, but also defensively, he'll also be relied on to help deal with any fires that Chelsea could suffer against City. So make sure you watch out for those two players when it comes to their match against City. Bukayo Saka, is another player that I think is a player to watch. Like I said, I watched the game yesterday with Arsenal and their match against Liverpool in the first leg of the Carabao Cup, and I thought he was very impressive. He's had 6 goals and 4 assists in 20 matches this season. If he can have a performance like he did against Liverpool, where it looked like he was just running all night and he was very much an engine, he could be able to make a big impact on helping Arsenal potentially getting 3 points against Tottenham. My last one, and this is an interesting one, is Philippe Coutinho. This is a new challenge. This is a new ambition for him. Could Philippe Coutinho make an impact off the bench or as a starter against Manchester United? He will be certainly looking to get off to a good run in his first match with Aston Villa. Yes, he has had a very troubling time with Barcelona. However, there is, I feel, still quality within him, and it could very much be unlocked in a new setting and under Steven Gerrard.
When you look at some of the player moves that have happened in this week, we talked a little bit about Chris Wood and Newcastle and Luca Digne and Villa. Emi Buendia came out publicly and said that he is more than happy and looking forward to working with a player like Coutinho. When you look at the Wood transaction to Newcastle and you look at the Digne transaction to Villa, what were your initial responses?
Chris Wood, he's a guy that will certainly, I think, be able to make an impact immediately with Newcastle in the Premier League. Yes, of course, there is an argument that maybe that money that Newcastle has could have been well spent somewhere else. But ultimately, this is something where Newcastle has to get out of relegation. So they will need a player who is ready to be able to come in, deal with that immediately. And Chris Wood, I feel like, is certainly that player. And it's a good signing for them in terms of, they need to get out of relegation as soon as possible. And with his experience, he can certainly help them do that. Lucas Digne to Aston Villa, I think, is my highlight. He's a good left back, one of the best left backs in the Premier League. Since he joined with Everton in 2018, I think he's had 18 assists in the Premier League. He very much is an attacking-minded left back. He likes to get on the front foot. And really, I found this interesting that apparently he revealed, I think in an interview, that Gerrard was the one that really convinced him to bring him here. And he was very much convinced with, Aston Villa and their terms of attacking play and wanting to keep possession. And he said that he had really high regards for Gerrard, thinking that, he's a manager with a huge desire to win. So I think this is certainly another big win for Aston Villa. They've, for me, been the ones that have been the most impressive to me from any Premier League team during this transfer window. I think they've really been ambitious with their signings, and they've really sent out a message that they want to climb up the table and potentially even do more and probably, shock some people in terms of expectations. So
Jason Hicks on the Twitch pitch, he says that Ronaldo's saying he's there for top 3 or nothing. Man U is still floundering. Villa can win this one. Maybe they don't, but juice box numbers just so everybody has these as well. Aston Villa as the last match on your Saturday at 12:30 Eastern as a plus 193. Your 90-minute draw is a plus 254, and Manchester United is your favorite here at plus 143. When we get into this particular segment, that is looking for a name, by the way. So if you have any kind of a name, let us have it on the Discord and let us have it here on the Twitch pitch, or reach out to us. Yes, the segment needs a name, so let us know what your suggestions are. As a part of this on a weekly basis, we want to make this a two-way street. If you have any questions for us about the Premier League, if you have anything that you want to bring to the floor, you can post it in the Discord. Nyle, where are they posting in the Discord? Where are you posting these questions?
I'm posting them on the Q&A section of the Discord. So anytime I post there, I'll tag everybody, and just if you have, I would love your response to the questions, and here I can sort of give my thoughts on your responses.
And remember, this is a Mondays and Fridays kind of a thing, where if you have things that happen through the weekend, you can post it there in the Q&A on Monday. If you have anything happening during the week that we don't address, or you want to address even that much more, you can do that on the Friday segment as well. one of the questions that I have for you, and I will make this a question to the floor. We had initially talked about Burnley being a part of the relegation scrap and the matchups with Watford and all this kind of stuff. My question for you is that right now it's looking like 4 for 3, and this is how we'll wrap up the segment this week. It's 4 for 3 spots when it comes to the relegation zone. Let's get into the numbers just so folks know what they are looking at when it comes to the standings. Watford is currently the one that is outside the relegation zone, and they're at 13 points. They've lost their last 5, 4, 1-13 this year. Burnley's at 11 points. Newcastle's at 11 points. They've only won 1 match this year. Norwich has actually won 2, but they've lost 14 at 10. Of these 4 clubs, and we know about the relegation round robin that's happening in the next week, which 3 drop in your mind and which one stays up?
Oh, I think the one that stays up for me is I think Newcastle. I think Newcastle for me stays up. I think
they get it done. Okay.
Yeah, I think really with the quality with what they're planning to bring in, there's still a bit of unknowns about what their next signing could be. They've recently been linked to Diego Carlos from Sevilla, 29-year-old center back. But for me, I think there's no reason why they should not be able to. And for me, they have enough quality, and I feel like for me, I just see them as the strongest out of these 3 teams. Yes, they've had a bit of questions, but for me, the other teams, Norwich, Watford, Burnley, I see as being relegated. Watford and Norwich, for me, they've been, I don't know, they've had a lot of trouble, and they just don't seem to be, they just don't seem like they can sort of get into any sort of form as of now. Burnley as well. So I feel like those are the ones for me that stay relegated. Newcastle has enough quality, I feel like, to remain in the Premier League.
So that's the question for the weekend. And for folks that want to address it, you can address it in the Discord in the Q&A section, or you can address it on Monday as well in the Twitch pitch. Nyle, any other last thoughts before we wrap up this particular segment for this week?
Yeah, just like it's gonna be a crazy weekend. Chelsea and City should be a very interesting match. I would say if Chelsea does win this match, I would say maybe the narrative that the title race is over isn't necessarily true. There's still a long way to go this season, and there's still enough quality from Chelsea, Liverpool, and other teams that, if City has one bad slump, which I'm not thinking will happen now, but of course it could happen in the future, then those teams could potentially sort of take advantage of that. But yeah, so I would just say that I would just say that the title race, I don't think is necessarily over. It's still there's still a lot to play for, and especially with this match, depending on how it goes, we could see what the answer truly is.
All right, we will hold you to all of that information. We are getting some decent ideas. Jason, come on back in, and we're getting some decent ideas here when it comes to the segment name. Domer is saying that this could be the English Inquisition. And so, of course, Jason Nix says, no one expected the English Inquisition. And Prem Lane from Sharif. Those are the first 2 suggestions that we have for this particular segment coming from the Twitch pitch.
Yeah, my thoughts on a couple of those. If Newcastle doesn't stay up with what they're going to spend, then Eddie Howe's appointment was a complete and utter failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to have more talent than the teams around them. He's got to find a way to get ahead of Watford. I mean, like, if he can't do that, then any of the thoughts about Eddie Howe being a guy who can move up the ladder with a bigger team, no, he's got to get this done. And the other one is I do think the title race is over. I think even with the amount of time, I just don't see City dropping enough points for that to happen. Now, barring something crazy happening, and as Thomas Tuchel pointed out this week, he said that City hasn't really been hit as hard by COVID as some of the other clubs have. Maybe that's down to just sheer luck. Maybe that's down to the protocols that they have in place. I don't know. But if that changes, although those numbers are going down in the Premier League, so maybe it's not going to be as much of a risk here going forward. We'll just have to wait and see. If that changes, then we're having a different conversation. But if it doesn't, I think City's got enough of a cushion to win this thing. I think they've got it. I think they've played the best soccer in the league, and I think Pep's the best manager in the league.
No, I'm right there with you. I am of the mindset that I think the race is over. I know at some point now we will get that clunker from Manchester City like we had against Norwich in years past, where it's a complete shocker that you lose. I think you get one. I know. I'm just saying you'll get one of those, but I think that the race is done and dusted. I think
it would take 4 or 5 of those,
right?
I think, for it to change. And even if you have one, even if you have some injuries, I just don't think it does. I think they've got enough of a cushion. I mean, I think the biggest question for City is what they do in Champions League.
Yeah.
And that's just what we'll have to wait and see. Nyle, I'll ask you one more before we let you go. MLS right now, let me go ahead and hit this really fast because we got a little bit of, it's not quite breaking news because it hasn't broken yet. So I'll give it the tabloid-esque sounder if it wants to play, and it doesn't. There it goes. Kellen Acosta from Colorado to LAFC for one of the biggest trades in MLS history, $1.5 million in GAM. 1.1 up front, 400,000 in incentives. I think the Nagbe deal to Columbus with all the incentives got into the 1.34 range, if I'm not mistaken. This could be the biggest ever. Colorado would retain a sell-on percentage. We've wondered what LAFC would do. Colorado was the best team in the West last year. They also are rumored to lose Cole Bassett maybe today to the Dutch league. So what does this do for the balance of power in the West, in your opinion, now?
For me, I think the top in the West is Seattle, of course. I think they're the ones that, have done. They're already a talented squad, but bring in Rusnak, I think really emphasizes that. I think Colorado, I think they could be in trouble if you lose a player like Cole Bassett, along with Kellen Acosta. That's 2 key players who are very much like part of the Rapid success last season. LAFC, sure, they got Acosta, but I still have questions about them in terms of how the rest of the season. There's still plenty of uncertainties with Vela. What happens with him? Can he go back to that top form that he was in the past couple of seasons with injury? And I think that's I just see Seattle still retaining their reign over the West.
I think it's a move that actually works for both teams, and we'll go into some more detail to it in hour number 2. It's a big one, and you do, I think, have to kind of factor in the Mark Anthony Kaye trade last year as almost a player swap with them, even though it's staggered by about 6 months, because that factors into, I think, why it can work for both teams. But we'll get into that in hour number 2. Nyle, thanks, man. I appreciate it for all that you're doing and for creating this segment. Good stuff.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Good, Nyle.
Contributor Nyle will be back with us on a Monday to recap the weekend in the Prem. We'll get into what this move that Tom Bogert has broken on Twitter. We'll get into what the move means for both teams and means out west. We do want to get your questions about MLS in 2022. If you could please drop them into the Twitch pitch. We will be getting into those in hour number 2 as well. The Cole Bassett part of this, just to go ahead and throw that in now, according to reports in the Netherlands, Bassett will be joining Feyenoord next Wednesday. It's a loan for a year and a half, so an 18-month loan. Saw that with James Sands. Feyenoord has a clause to buy the player after that, and it's been in the national newspaper AD. Remember, Feyenoord, their new sporting director is Dennis de Close, who was last with the LA Galaxy, who would know Cole Bassett very, very well from his work in MLS. So it makes a ton of sense. Bassett is 20 years old. He is starting to get that kind of bump up into what's going on in the U.S. national team. We talked about him on the Soccer for US pod in terms of the depth chart and where that fits. Go check that out. That dropped on the network yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to hear that yet, Bart and I went 5 deep and more because we each had like a bunch of extra guys. 5 deep on the U.S. depth chart. And Bassett's on there. And Bassett could improve that standing if he goes to Feyenoord and does well over the next 12 months. He's going to be there for 18 months, it looks like. So Bassett and Acosta leaving Colorado. They have added Max from Brazil. We'll get into what their lineup looks like. We'll get into what this does for LAFC in hour number 2 and take a bunch of your questions and throw some questions at you ourselves. But, John, you now have to, in just a moment as I pull things up, you're going to tell us about our good friends Toca Football and Eliminize right about now.
Question for you. Do you have a young soccer player in your family? Have you ever considered private instruction with a professional instructor to take your favorite player's game to the next level? Toca Football has four indoor soccer training centers in the Atlanta area. Their trainers utilize innovative technology in a fun environment to help improve your favorite player's skill and decision-making. Give Toca Football a try, why don't you? SDH is partnering with Toca to offer our listeners an opportunity to check out their revolutionary and fun Toca soccer training method for no cost whatsoever. It is free, so you can book your free session now with the promo code DH. DH is your promo code, DH. Go to tocafootball.com/program/toca-training, tocafootball.com/program/TOCA-training, or go to the downhere.net website, click on the Toca Football banner, and get your favorite player's game headed to the next level right then and there. SDH is also brought to you by Eliminize Service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize Service deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those from pet, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. Eliminize offers a turnkey process that makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. It's kind of the environment offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue, different than Febreze or any other masking agents that we have in our homes currently. They use a proven scientific formula to destroy odors down to the molecule. They make pricing easy, either by cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, you can go to their website, eliminize.com. Also, /Atlanta after that, eliminize.com/Atlanta, so they know where you're contacting them from. Eliminize, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta. Eliminize Service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH.
I still can't figure out your read times anymore because you keep changing it, but that was somewhere around one of them that you said.
Was it on
no, it was right. Well, I don't know. You've said anywhere from 145 to like 220. So that's a pretty wide range there, John.
Well, no, 136 is the Eliminize read on its own. And then 40.
You changed it. You've changed these numbers is what I'm telling you. Oh. You have changed them because you said 145 when we first started talking about timing. And also Tom Cato has a very important question that I'm a little curious about myself. Pets are smoking now? What has this world turned into?
Chaos, my friend. It is dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria, Tom Cato. That's what we're getting into if pets are smoking now.
That's a problem if they are, yes. Okay. Other MLS news on the board to get caught up on everything before we get into this latest with Acosta potentially going to LAFC. Kai Wagner has been linked, according to Christian Dyer, to interest coming from the Premier League, Bundesliga, and La Liga, and top clubs in Turkey. Watford and Espanyol were linked by name by Christian Dyer. Kai Wagner has said he wants to go back and play in Europe at some point, so that's no real surprise. Does it get done? Keep an eye on it. Scott Caldwell, who was, if not the first, I think he was the most successful overall homegrown that the New England Revolution have signed. He moves to Real Salt Lake. 30 years old, 9 seasons with the Revs. Caldwell is just one of those guys who's in that holding midfielders appreciation society who, gets kind of lost in the shuffle at times because he doesn't do, the playmaking, doesn't score the goals, but he's consistent in setting everything up behind that. So Caldwell to RSL. We've mentioned Bassett, and our friend Will Pelagic on WFNZ in Charlotte talked to Nick Kelly, Charlotte FC president, and an update on Riley McGree taking his physical with Middlesbrough. They're waiting on the results of the physical and the paperwork, but expecting the deal to go through. Kelly wouldn't share the actual numbers, but he said that they are expecting, quote, one of the highest, unquote, outgoing transfer fees, and allows them to go after a caliber of designated player that they might not have been able to budget 2 days ago. Interesting. The numbers that have been thrown around, initially, the numbers on the deal to Celtic were, and I think when they were first tweeted about it was in dollars, but the talk was actually in pounds. So somewhere between 1.7 and $2 million roughly was what Celtic was going to pay. It looks like this could be in the $5 to $7 million range from Middlesbrough, which kind of wondering what Middlesbrough's doing, but hey, whatever. It's a big potential deal for Charlotte. Also a big salary for McGree. And it would allow them to potentially do some other things that maybe they weren't considering before. Maybe Charlotte's going to spend a little more money. We've talked about Charlotte ad nauseum over the weeks here as they get closer to their first preseason opening up. They're going to play in the Carolina Challenge Cup in Charleston. They've got a lot of holes in that lineup, and they don't have much star power right now, and they don't have much impact in that lineup right now is maybe the even more important thing. We'll see what they do to change that, because I don't think they signed 3 designated players before the start of the season, but they got to get somebody in that can be impactful in the attacking half. They've got to get somebody in before opening day to do that, or the first half of the season will be difficult, as Miguel Angel Ramirez, I think, is a manager who can bridge the gap in terms of quality of the roster with other teams, but there's only so far you can bridge that thing, and we'll see what he can do. Okay, let's get back to the particulars on Acosta to LAFC. So let's look at the LAFC side of it, because we've talked about them a lot and what their expectation is this year. And I frankly don't know yet, because I want to see what happens with Brian Rodriguez. I want to see what happens with Carlos Vela, although that talk of Vela leaving has gotten a lot more quiet here lately. Doesn't mean he won't, but it hasn't really ramped up. So let's assume he's there. Goalkeeper right now is Tomas Romero. That's the only goalkeeper they have. They counted on him late last season. He's young. You're going to have some ups and downs with him, but he's probably been the best one that they've ever had in terms of, I think, projected ability. He's just not there yet because he's young. He's only got 1 pro season under his belt. Backline, I don't know how it shakes out, but they have a number of potential starters now. And this is something that they haven't really had. They've had to piece this stuff together. You got Diego Palacios at left back. Very, very good. You got Marco Farfan there pushing him. Very good. Mohamed Traore as the youngster on the way up. Okay, you can make moves if you need to make moves with that group. On the right side, you've got Franco Escobar. You've got Kim Moon Hwan. Julian Gaines is the homegrown. Kim Moon Hwan is a solid player. Escobar is probably going to start, but does he factor into a center back setup with Eddie Segura, with Mamadou Fall, with Jesus Murillo? I think Ibiaga is depth, and Tony Leone is another homegrown who I think is depth at this point. Do they play 3 center backs? We don't really know what Cherundolo is going to do in that regard. So they've got the pieces to play 3 center backs if they want with wing backs. They could play a line of 4. They've got flexibility. That's a nice place for them to be in after the last couple of years. The midfield, you add Kellen Acosta. You also added Ilie Sanchez. So you've got 2 true 6s. And I agree with Matt Doyle on this one. His response to the rumors on Acosta moving, I think, makes a lot of sense. He said that he thinks that this means LAFC sees Acosta as a 6, which he was not playing exactly in Colorado because Jack Price was playing that position. So Acosta as a 6 is why LAFC wants him. They need to fill that spot after selling Atuesta. I don't know if Ilie is who they see there on a regular basis, but they do have Ilie as well. Could play a double pivot. Also, Acosta could see this as an opportunity to play the 6 regularly and be the backup behind Tyler Adams on the national team. So we've had this conversation with the national team, and if Adams goes down, what do you do with the 6? Bart and I talked about this a lot on the Soccer for US pod. There's not an easy answer because Acosta is probably the most like for like with Adams, but I also don't think he's a true Tyler Adams clone. He's not a true 6. He likes to roam a little bit. He'll go on a walkabout. That's good. But if you're the 6 by yourself, you can't do that. I like Gianluca Busio in that kind of a role, but defensively, he's more of a liability. Acosta has an opportunity to book a ticket to the World Cup and book a ticket on the national team if he plays that position consistently. But does he? Because they have Ilie. They have Kellen Acosta. They have Francisco Janela. They have Jose Cifuentes. They have Latif Blessing. They have Vela who can play as a 10. That's a lot of central midfielders. How do you make it fit? Is it 1 behind 2? Is it 2 behind 1? Does Vela go out wide? Does Blessing go out wide? I mean, is it a situation where maybe you see Ilie, Acosta, Cifuentes with Vela on one flank, Blessing on the other? Then Brian Rodriguez is like, hey, wait a minute, what about me? And Cristiano Arango up top. LAFC, as we talked about with Seattle, LAFC now has some interesting decisions from a lineup perspective. They have more of that now than they did coming into the offseason. We've wondered where the moves have been. People will not get as excited about a move like this from within the league, but it gives them a lot more flexibility. I think the signing of Ilie, the trade for Acosta, both really good. And John, when you factor in the 2 moves, remember Mark Anthony Kaye went to Colorado last year. Mark Anthony Kaye was more of a double pivot or an 8, but Colorado sent $1 million in GAM and a 2022 international roster slot, which right now is being valued at $250 to LAFC for a first-round pick in the 2022 MLS Super Draft and Mark Anthony Kaye. There was also additional GAM involved in that. So when you're looking at $1 million going one way, 1.1 going the other way, you've got performance-based incentives on either side, whatever. You've got some international slots, some draft picks going round and round. Roughly, it's a trade of Mark Anthony Kaye, who was not going to play the 6 for LAFC going forward. He's not the 6. He's a different role. He wasn't a Tuesta. He played with a Tuesta. For a guy who can play the 6 in Kellen Acosta, whereas Colorado didn't really need another 6 as much as they needed somebody like an 8 like Kaye. I think it's one of those rare moves that works good for both teams.
Yeah, I do too. And the second level, as you were presenting your evidence, the second level notion of Acosta getting reps consistently at a position where he can benefit himself on a national team scale. And I thought that was key to me in this, where if he's getting reps at the 6 and then he can be the number 2 with Tyler Adams, I think that benefits him if he's, as he's continuing to look for national team play. But no, I think that what we saw with Mark Anthony Kaye last year heading to Colorado and helping them out, now you have Kellen Acosta coming back the other way. To your point, I also want to see what Steve Cherundolo does with his layout with all of these folks that he has now, whether it's at the back or in the midfield. But no, I like the idea of Acosta getting reps as that 6 to continue to further his national team duties as the one behind Tyler Adams.
Cesar Luis Merlo tweeting, translated, Atlanta United and Ezequiel Barco asked Internacional in Brazil for a few more days to respond to the offer, 1-year loan with a purchase option that has been made, according to Merlo. And this is Merlo following up on that. Says that the player values the proposal, wants to wait near the end of the European market to decide. All of that makes total sense across the board. I think Barco's been clear in saying he wants to go to Europe when that opportunity comes. He's going to wait and see if that opportunity comes now. Inter, I'm assuming, to make it worth his while, is probably going to pay him pretty well. And Inter's a club who can. This is not, some of the other Brazilian clubs we've talked about at points who've had some financial issues. Inter's in pretty good shape from everything that I've been able to find. They're going to have to make it worth his while to come. He also might, as we talked to Nico Moreno yesterday, it might be that situation where, all right, he's done a lot here, especially in the last half of last season. He was incredible. Does another year like that help him in terms of that move to Europe, or just going to Brazil, which might open up more possibilities, and going to Portugal, possibly, potentially Spain, as we see a lot of players from Brazil go into Spain. Maybe it opens up some different possibilities for him, and it also allows him to show, hey, it took me a minute, but I did well there. Let's get, some new, fresh, good evidence for you that I'm ready to make the jump. and maybe move into a club like Inter and play in the Libertadores and all of that would be that situation. So let's stay tuned on that. But Merlo has tweeted, again, just to be very clear in what he has tweeted. He says Atlanta United and Ezequiel Barco have asked for a few more days to respond to the offer that Internacional has made about a 1-year loan with a purchase option. Barco's interested, but he wants to wait until the end of the European market to decide. All that's logical. All that kind of checks the boxes. So I can buy into that if that's where things stand right now. Okay. I'm sure we'll have questions about that as well, but we're going to start hitting the questions here in just a second. Really quick on Colorado's side, because I saw the initial responses about the Bassett rumor and now the Acosta potential trade of, Colorado, not very good. Kroenke's, he's tanking. No, not at all, because you have Jack Price, who's one of the best holding midfielders in the league. You have Mark Anthony Kaye as an 8 that is one of the best players in that position in the league. All right, no big loss on Acosta because you got Kaye. Bassett is a loss, but you signed Max from Brazil, from Flamengo, to come in and be an impactful player. You also have Jonathan Lewis out wide. You have Michael Barrios out wide. You have Philip Mayaka, who you drafted last year, who's now had a year to adjust to the pro game, who is a player that a lot of people expected to turn into a starter in MLS. He'll be able to spell K a little bit in that holding midfield. So lots of pieces to replace Bassett and Acosta if these deals both happen. And if they happen quickly, you're in pretty good shape. And you'll also potentially have some ability to go add more if you want to do that. So I think Colorado's fine. I think it frees things up, and you play Price and K, and those two can be a really good pair. Max is the big wild card, replacing a guy like Bassett, who was very good for them last year. But that's not a crazy bet. It's not a crazy one. So I think the trade can help both teams. I think it's a good move both ways, and it's almost a straight swap in some ways with Acosta and K. All right, let's get into questions. Strummer John with the first one. John, your answer to Austin FC. What is a successful season for them in 2022?
You look at how things were for them last year, 9-21-4, and they were 31 points next to last. I think that if you get into 12-win territory, that gives you 9 points-ish, so that puts you north of 40 points. So I would probably say somewhere 40 points, maybe a little north of 40 points to have you closer to the playoff discussion, but not completely involved in it. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 40 points for me as the next step for Austin coming in next year.
So just 9 more points, which would have left you, according to last season's numbers, which don't always go year to year, but that would have left you still 8 points out. I think realistically, based on the roster, you're not off base. I just don't know if that's what the expectation is going to be. How patient are they?
Right.
You've got to get there, to get 3 more wins. You had to hit on Valencia, the signing that they just announced, the holding midfielder that is very good, according to reports. You're going to have to get a lot out of Alexander Ring, who's now on a designated player status. I think you're going to need more from Cecilio Dominguez. You're going to need more from Sebastian Giroussi, Musajite. I don't know if you've got enough in that team right now to look at it and say, yeah, you can get 3 more wins. I definitely don't think you have enough to say, yeah, you can push for a playoff spot.
No.
And in the question that the Strummer John followed up with, if they don't reach whatever this expectation is Wolf safe? I'm wondering what the expectation is, because if the expectation is they're going to make the playoffs or be at least competitive for a playoff spot, I don't think that's realistic with where their roster is. So if that's the expectation and they don't get near it, then no, I don't think Wolf's safe. I think the expectation should be probably the 40-point mark and maybe a little bit more than that. But if they can be in the playoff race until the last month of the season, that's a huge step. That's big, and I think Wolf would be fine in that case. I just don't know where the club sees the expectation.
Right.
And that's going to affect the safety level. That's going to affect that issue. And I just don't know where it stands right now. He should be safe because I think he's done about all he can do with that team. We'll see if he can coach them past the ability that they have, because I think as currently constructed, talent-wise, that roster is not really that much better than it was last year. And are they going to be able to make up the gap with coaching? We'll find out how good of a coach Josh Wolf is this year.
You look at the number of goals scored last season, and they were worst in the league. Yeah, it was by one. They only scored 35 goals last year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't have Brad Stuver in net, they would have lost a lot more games, and it might have been uglier than giving up the 56 that they did. Now, to get into the playoff discussion, let's just take last year's numbers as part of this. 48 points got you into the playoffs last year. Salt Lake was 14, 14, and 6. So by math, you'd have to have won 5 more games, and you would have had to have not hemorrhaged losses like you did. I mean, you lost 21 of 34 last year. I think that being competitive toward the end of the year, yes, I think that, that to me is a sign of growth. I think that saying that you should be in contention for a playoff spot at the end of it, I think that that's unrealistic considering what you have. You've got a lot of work to do offensively, and you've got to stop all the goals that you gave up defensively, although there were a lot of folks that gave up goals in the 50s last year in the Western Conference. But I'm looking at, and I guess this is me looking at things in a progression as opposed to some kind of a whiplash result of, okay, look, you're going to get into the playoffs. No, you've got to grow in here. And I hope that the patience is there with the ownership and with the fan base in Austin. It's like, this is a growth process here. And I think that Josh Wolf has done well with what he's been able to deal with.
I'm sure, as we see everywhere, there's probably a anonymous account that is at Wolf Out, and there's probably a hashtag that people use. And I'm sorry, if you look at that roster and you look at the talent, they did about what they should do. We'll see if he can coach them past that same number this year, because the lineup's not going to be dramatically different at this stage. It's just not. You're going to have to see development in individuals to see that change. Jason Nix, going back to MLS Soccer's article about the one thing each team needs to worry about for 2022. Matt Doyle said that was Joseph being healthy. Jason Nix wanted to know, do you agree that this is the biggest question for 2022? Yeah, I mean, it's probably the one that's the most outside of your control, but yes, it's a big question. I don't really have another one that I would put ahead of it, because we saw what this team can be in the second half of last season. I don't have a ton of questions about it. The other questions would be, again, stuff outside of your control about potential transfer market when it comes to Bello, when it comes to Barco, when it comes to Robinson, and how the reaction is to potential moves. Both are questions that you're going to have to react to more than anything as we get Jarrett Smith back into the mix right now. I think either one of those situations, you're going to have to react to if Joseph is not back to where he was or not progressed past what he was, although every expectation is that he will. If he's not, then you're going to have to react to it when that happens, because you can't predict that. If you get the good enough offers for Bello or Robinson or Barco or anybody else for that matter, then you're going to have to react to those when they show up. So they're not things that you can necessarily like preemptively do anything about outside of have the depth that you have. The question with Joseph is the biggest question, and that's always the toughest place to have depth that can step in and do the same thing. There's just not many teams that have a number 2 forward that is as good as the number 1. Not in MLS anyway, because go back to the first hour and the conversation about teams are going to invest in the front 6, in the attacking players in this league. That's where you're going to spend your money. That's where your designated players are going to be. You've only got 3 designated players. You're not going to have 2 of them in the same position generally. It's just a fact. So if that happens, then you're going to have to react to it and probably address it in the summer window. Can you have more options up top? Yeah, you can. And Nico Moreno told us last week that, there are conversations about Will Bruin. I do think they probably need a backup there, because also along the same lines, I think Eric Lopez probably needs to play this season and not just be a backup. so his development can continue. I think Jackson Conway's in roughly the same boat. So to get those guys the minutes they need for their long-term development, I think you're going to need to send them out on loan, possibly, which means you'd need somebody to be able to be the backup forward. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest question, but I don't think it's a big question in the sense of, oh no, panic mode, hit a button that there's no reason to right now, because everything is pointing towards he's going to be in better shape, further away from the last situation he had with his knee, the last procedure that he had with his knee. You're going to be even further away from that. You're going to have a full preseason to build that fitness. And that preseason is critical. Any manager will tell you that. It's so critical to having a good year. When you have disruptions in preseason, it can be so much more difficult. And when those disruptions are caused by injuries like they were with Joseph last year that we didn't know about at the time. We didn't know that he had a procedure in December when preseason started in late February. We didn't know that. Made a lot of sense as to how things looked early on. So we'll see how that changes. Jarrett, what's your biggest question about Atlanta United coming into 22? Or do you have one? You might not have one.
I mean, as far as like a biggest question, I'm not sure off the top of my head. I guess what does it look like day one because of the silly season and the transfer rumors and this, that, and the other? That might be my biggest question: is who is actually here and who's not, either on loan or on getting shipped out. Is it something maybe we don't expect? It feels like there's always at least one that, kind of comes out of left field, even if it's not a huge transfer, but, who's here day one, who's not? I guess how the midfield shakes out will be an interesting one for me because Santiago Sosa was so damn good last year when he was healthy. I know he's coming back from the injury. I believe they said at the immediate availability that he may not be ready for start of training camp, but he's had a schedule. You still have Emerson.
They're expecting him to be able to play in preseason, which maybe makes it a little more of a question mark. Is he going to be ready to start on opening day? I don't know if that's 100%. Yes, at this point, but it looks like he will be able to participate in matches in preseason.
Aside from that, Emerson Hyndman is a guy who, before he got hurt last year, was really doing well. And then he has the ACL injury, but. How does it shake out in the midfield? Because how much does Ozzy Alonso play? How much do you rely on him? What can he give you? What does Mateus Aceto, who was really good going into the late part of the season, into the end of the season last year, how do those minutes shake out? Who takes those minutes? More so than anything, I guess, is who reaches out and grabs those minutes by the throat.
Yeah, and you always kind of see the stuff in preseason where somebody jumps up that depth chart based off performances. Could it be one of the homegrowns? Could it be somebody like Tyler Wolff, who Gonzalo Pineda has constantly talked about as being a really pleasant surprise with his ability once he took over the team? Could it be an opportunity for somebody who gets time because of Sosa a little bit slow to recover, Hyndman still easing back in? Hyndman's, I think, further ahead than we thought he would be at this stage. Looks like he could factor into preseason as well. So there's opportunities. Could it be somebody from the twos who gets this time? Could it be an Aiden McFadden? Could it be a Robbie Mertz? Could it be one of those guys who show that, hey, wait a minute, we might need to rearrange the depth chart a little bit, and we might need to lock them down on a deal, and maybe we loan them back to the twos for now, but hey, they've impressed us and things have changed a little bit. Quick follow. Go ahead, Coach. Sorry.
That's where I was going to go next. Was to wrap with was people from the twos. If I don't know if you guys covered it, but if you followed the twos last year, Abdoulaye Diop has signed with Detroit City, who is making the jump to USL. By all accounts, Abdoulaye Diop was training with the first team early last year and was well liked. Who from the twos jumps up and trains with the first team, and y'all don't read too much into it. If someone from the second team, Robbie Mertz, is training with the first team, that doesn't mean Robbie Mertz is about to start and join the the starting 11 or even the 18.
He does that a couple times a week anyway. That's normal.
Yeah. So, I mean, who's impressive with this coaching staff? Because everybody sees things differently. Carry on.
100%. Follow up on the Barco tweet from Cesar Luis Merlo. Tafka says, we're all in speculation mode, but if the loan comes to fruition, it means there must be some kind of extra time on Barco's deal, right? Else Barco would be able to go for free, no option needed. Again, let me go back to what we know and what we don't know. We don't know if this is the last year of Barco's contract. I would assume that if it would be a 1-year loan with an option to buy at the end, then it's not the last year of his deal, or there would be an additional year tacked onto it as part of the agreement here. You wouldn't loan him with an option to buy in the last year of his deal, and then that option isn't triggered, and then he can walk on a free. As we've lost John and we try to regain John because John's in a weird internet situations. I would assume that it's not the last year of his deal, and I don't know that for sure. And I don't know if he has an option at the end of this year. I don't know if they add a year, or whatever. We don't know the particulars, and they really don't matter at the moment. But yeah, I don't think you would loan him in the last year of his deal to where if the option isn't picked up, he could walk for free. No, I don't think that would be logical. It wouldn't be good business. So I would assume that there is something more to it. One of two ways. Either it's an obligation to buy at a certain point where you know you're going to get a transfer fee out of it, or it is a loan with an additional year on the contract afterwards in some form or fashion. Either it's an option that the team picks up another year on his contract that we just don't know about, or you're adding another year to his contract in an agreement with the player. I think that all makes sense. That's just kind of logical in the way this would go. But we don't know everything about these deals. I did see that one of the reporters who is doing things from an anonymous standpoint in Miami covering the team did, when they made their signings, look, Jaime Mabika and George Acosta, not the biggest names in the world, but an account had that they signed and had details on their contracts, had details on how many years, what the options were on it, as we lose John again. What that looked like. That was fascinating to me. I would love to see that more widely reported around the league. And Jarrett, you know, we've had this conversation when it comes to baseball, when it comes to the NFL, when it comes to the NBA. The teams don't always give everybody all that information. It is down to it being broken out and reported by the people covering this. And it's something that MLS really don't have a lot of detail on. We have a lot of guesses. We have a lot of, you are getting some information from teams on some deals now, but not every one. So this Barco situation is a prime example. Does he have another year? Yeah, I would assume so if they're going to loan him for a year, if that's the deal that goes down, but we don't know that for sure. I hope that gets reported more widely.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how that continues to develop and how it's reported, because that is something that, you got to consider. That crossed my mind with the idea of the reports of a loan deal. I'm like, okay, well, I guess he's under contract. That just seems like one of those things that just kind of clicks in your head of, okay, well, he must be under contract for another year or something. We must be in that situation. That being said, we'll see how much fire there is, how much, smoke and fire there is to all that. Because, you also had the reports yesterday, them chasing players from LAFC too. And maybe Internacional is just like, they're doing what you do on FIFA, man. They're just out there trying to grab, they're out there just trying to grab everyone on loan that they can, like you're playing FIFA and you're trying to build out and just see, and you're throwing out feelers to see how much is things going to cost.
Yeah, Brian Rodriguez is the one who was linked from LAFC to Internacional. Kevin Baxter said that Brazilian reports had that. I didn't see it specifically from Brazilian reports that I follow, but Baxter, the LA Times, one of the best in the biz. So that was his tweet, that Rodriguez was being tracked by Inter, and don't know where that process stands. Question from Ricky. What team in each conference is set up to go worst to first, or more realistically, below the line to above the line? So in the East, John, quick answer, who is the most likely out of DC, Columbus, Montreal, Miami, Chicago, Toronto Cincinnati to make the playoffs?
I'll go Toronto with a mad dash at the last part of the year.
Jarrett?
Toronto.
I don't know if they're able to pull this off. I'm not sold yet.
They're going to get above the line.
I'm not sold yet.
I'm not telling you they're going to win the. I'm not telling you they're going to win the East. I'm confident they'll have the firepower to get above the line.
I'm not sold yet. I am actually going to put my my poutine on Montreal. I think Wilfred Nancy is going to take a big step with that group. They were really close last year. I just have more questions about Toronto today, and you can tag this with January 14th. I do not buy into Toronto as they are currently constructed as the most likely to get into the postseason. If moves that have been rumored happen, and still other things have to happen too, then yes, that could change by the time we get to opening day. But right now, I don't put them there. I actually think Montreal is more likely. In the West, out of the LA Galaxy, LAFC, San Jose, Dallas, Austin, Houston, which one is the most likely to get into the postseason, John?
LAFC.
Jarrett?
Galaxy.
Ooh. Right now, I would lean to LAFC in that one. I'm not necessarily all that sold on either because the West is still a bit of a crapshoot. So I'm looking at who might fall out. I think Vancouver has the potential to be even better. Minnesota might fall out.
That's the one I was looking at.
But Jason, they got a Boots and Lottie back.
That's true.
Woo. RSL, can they do what they did last year again? I don't know about that either. I'll go LAFC. I don't feel good about it, but I'll go LAFC with that. Good question, Ricky.
Like how we just abused the Texas teams and threw them off to the side.
I mean, it's going to take Houston another year. I like what they're trying to do. I think if they get the Paraguayan forward Ferreira, that's a good addition. I think Nagamura has the potential to do good work there. Houston just needs more time. Dallas probably needs time. I think if Paxton Pomacall comes back and is very impactful, then Dallas could be a different conversation. And Austin, I mean, we talked about it earlier. I don't think they can really expect a whole lot more than 40 points. And I don't think that gets them into the postseason. So that's where things stand there. Yes, Tom Cato said somebody did a hashtag arena out first day he was hired. There's no rest. Oh, jeez. Bruce did have some things to say about, kind of what things look like for him long term. He seems completely, bought in and on point with this. I'll ask a question for both of you quickly. New England, I think it's hard to expect them to have the same point total that they did last year, but what would you set the bar at for New England coming into this year with the moves that they have made and how different it will look? What point total are you expecting for the New England Revolution, John?
60.
That's a big drop off.
Okay. I don't think you can go back to back with 22 win seasons. I think they come back to the pack, and I think that it turns into a bit of a street fight at the top.
Okay, Jarrett,
you're gonna hate my answer. 58.
Wow. Okay.
It's not that I think they're going to be bad. It's just they're going to regress. It's okay.
I don't know.
It doesn't mean that they're bad. I just think
no,
regression.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't know if I expect them to regress. I mean, I actually think they might be a better team in some ways with adding Legit. The question is,
if you told me that team is better and they end up in the low 60s, I would believe it. If the team itself is better,
that's more of where I'm at.
Okay.
That's more of where I'm at. I think they'll be better than you guys think, but I do think they won't get 73 again. Because I think other teams will be better too.
I also think the East could be kind of a bloodbath, and they get their scalp taken a couple times here or there.
The biggest question, because I think Legit is a better fit if they stay in the 4-4-2 diamond than Tajon Buchanan was. I think Buchanan, you were shoving him into a position and it didn't always fit. I think with Legit it will. But if Buxa goes to Pisa in Italy in Serie B for 9.5, then they're going to have to replace him to be in the conversation that I'm having anyway, where they're low 60s, but maybe a better team. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting. Burns question. What has been the major mistake that the recent entrants to MLS have made in terms of roster builds? Bad designated players, bad TAM, bad MLS-based players, bad back end of the roster, bad coaches, whatever you think it is. Let's go. The 4 teams he wants to ask about. We've talked about them a lot this morning. Austin, John, what do you think the biggest mistake they have made is?
Biggest mistake? Missing on their high price signings, thinking that you're going to get more from them from an offensive standpoint. It's just the guys that they brought in have not been putting the ball in the back of the net, so your high price signings whiffed.
Jarrett?
Your high price signings because you have Pochettino who's going out again now and leaving after 1 year, and also the depth. Because this is the area that, this will be my answer for a lot of it, honestly. So let me spoil that for you. Where Atlanta was so successful, where LAFC were so successful, was in hitting those MLS depth spots. The spots that weren't big TAM signings, the Jeff Larentowitzes of the world, getting value out of Anton Walks, getting value out of Tyrone Mears when you did, hitting your loan deals just right. It's not the big, the sun, the moon, and the stars, but it's the celestial bodies that orbit that are more lower priced that you have to hit on and get value on, especially when you lack depth.
Out of these 4, I think Austin has had the best realistic build out of them. But yeah, they've missed on the high end, in my opinion. I think the depth is okay. I think their squad overall is pretty solid. I think they hired Josh Wolf, and I think that pointed you in the right direction. They were not going to go out and expect to blow everybody away in year 1 or 2, because it was his first coaching job. I thought he grew on the job last year. I thought he got better as the year went on. I think they didn't commit huge resources to those high price signings. So it's a different kind of miss. It's not like missing on Steven Gerrard like the LA Galaxy did, where, he didn't have the legs anymore. They spent a good bit of money to bring him in. They had a lot of expectation and it flopped. I don't think Austin had huge expectations for the guys they brought in. I think they fit the budget. I think they fit what they wanted. Maybe you didn't get enough out of them like you would have liked to have seen, but that would have been more of a bonus. I think for Austin, big picture, to be competitive, they are going to have to spend more. They are going to have to spend more at that top end because, you have a new coach who's learning on the job, who is going to get out coached at times, who's going to make mistakes, and he's not going to be able to bridge that gap in talent. And it's a big gap. So Austin's going to have to figure it out. And look, I don't know what the ownership plan was in terms of spending. I don't know if they wanted to get into their building and bring in revenues before they started to spend more, but to be competitive, you're going to have to spend more, flat out. And you're going to have to hit on those, obviously, but I think more importantly, you're going to have to spend more to be a winner in Austin. You're just going to have to do that. And I don't know when that happens for them. Miami, what's the biggest mistake they made, John?
Thinking that they could circumnavigate the rules of Major League Soccer.
Well, yeah, that's true. Jared?
Deciding to become a brand more than a club and structure. I mean, they seem to focus more on being that Miami brand as opposed to like building out a functioning team. Also, yeah, the whole like breaking the rules thing and bringing in a bunch of old players when that era is past.
I think you can do it if you do it correctly. I think the biggest issue for them is they didn't have any real coherent philosophy. I think it was just, okay, we can get this big name. Let's go get him. All right. They waited forever to get the coach and Diego Alonso in year 1, and that was not the right hire, and it didn't fit the players that they were signing. Like, nothing fit. There wasn't even a flow chart of do this and then this and then this, and if you can't do that, then you do this instead. Like, there wasn't anything like that. It was haphazard and very poor. The initial roster build for them was atrocious. maybe I hold it to a higher standard because I frankly, I don't think it's as bad as what Minnesota did in year one, but Miami should not have been in that conversation. Like it shouldn't have even been remotely linked to Minnesota 2017 because of what Miami had to work with. And it was because it was that bad. Just no plan, just thrown together. Cincinnati, biggest mistake they made, John.
I just, when I looked at Cincinnati, I didn't know what their philosophy was. I had no earthly idea what their identity was going to be on the pitch. And I think also, actually, tell you what, their first mistake was Alan Koch.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that was their first one, but that was a big one.
Well, but you have that cascade of the coaching carousel that started with bringing him along from USL Championship, and I just think he was ill prepared to be coaching Major League Soccer.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I think in terms of first mistake, they even made one before that. Jarrett.
Jumping into the deep end of the pool without a life raft, going from USL to MLS unprepared. Like it just seemed like they tried to take the USL model and push it up, and it doesn't work that way. Missed on draft picks as well. Missed with your number one draft pick kind of being disillusioned by everything and getting traded within a year. You brought in Fernando Adi for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And there's Allen's a good one. Like the lack of stability with GM and coach. Cincinnati's got a laundry list.
I think Cincinnati's biggest mistake is they didn't put soccer people in charge of making soccer decisions at the beginning.
Yeah,
they had business people making soccer decisions early on, and they made bad decisions. Alan Koch was one of them. The roster was one. Just again, from the beginning, I don't think they had the right people in place to make the right decisions. And then they didn't get it right the second time around either. And it's just continued. I think they have good people in place now, and we'll see how long it'll take them to make up for the mistakes they've made previously, because they'll have the money they've tried to spend. I think the resources will be there, but you got some bad contracts. You got some things to deal with. We'll see who Pat Noonan is as a manager. It's going to be really interesting. But I think initially it's just not having soccer people making soccer decisions.
Yeah.
Charlotte, what do you think the biggest mistake they have made so far is, John?
Not having the marquee signing that you can put on every billboard and have the car wash.
Jarrett?
I don't want to really say anything about Charlotte. You can call it a cop-out if you want to, but until I actually see them on the field, and see how they go through their first season, I don't want to say what's right or wrong because I haven't seen it actually show out anything. I guess their biggest misfortune is apparently they decided Mint was going to be a color when their rival down I-85 decided to use a Mint kit as well. And I swear to God, Atlanta, if you don't wear the Mint kit into Charlotte to spite them, I will be so disappointed.
I will be cackling. Charlotte, I think the biggest mistake they've made so far is it is not quite the eve of training camp opening, but pretty close. And their roster is, I'll be nice and say incomplete.
I was going to say scattershot.
No, it's not even about scattershot. It's nothing to do with that. It's incomplete. It's not even past like saying, well, there's not a philosophy. I think there is. I think Miguel Angel Ramirez has a philosophy that he's going to instill in the players that he has. But you're this close, and you're bringing in a goalkeeper from Bulgaria. You've got 4 outside backs. One of them's 36. The other one, Harrison Offal, I think is 35. Jalen Lindsay is a starter. Fuchs might have to be. We'll see what he's got left. Anton Walks, McCoon at center back, okay. You got 2 other guys that we just don't know anything about. Alcivar and Franco, I think good pieces. I don't think either one's going to blow you away in this league, but very good potential players. You got 2 kids in Hegart and Bender who are going to have to play like not kids. You have Mackenzie Gaines as one winger, and you have Jordi Reyna, who's wildly inconsistent, and Vinicius Melo up top, who's a teenager. You got 3 teenagers. Well, not even teenagers. Hegart's not a teenager. Bender, I think, is 20. And Vinicius Melo, and you're going to need big performances out of at least 2 of them to be competitive. Like, not good, competitive. they've left a lot of their roster build late, and that is the biggest mistake they've made. They might fix it before opening day. They might have moves that are ready to be announced, just haven't been yet. They might have moves that are very close. They might have had, chases that led them down dark alleys and they didn't get it. But it's incomplete this late in the game. And you're going to have to do one of two things. You're going to have to maybe overpay to get pieces in, or you're going to have to just go grab whatever free agents are available in MLS to fill holes. And that's not a coherent strategy. They should have done better up to this point in terms of the roster build. They haven't. They got time to fix it. Tick-tack. 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 Okay. More questions on MLS in 2022. Lots of conversation about lots of different things that have happened this morning. Thomas asked when Brazil's transfer window closes. It's in April. That doesn't really help Atlanta in terms of this long term, but it doesn't close on January 31st. So you can wait until January 31st. If a move for Barco doesn't happen to Europe, then you can do a deal before MLS roster compliance to move him to Internacional if you need to, because that window closes it's April 4th, I think. It might be the 5th or the 6th, but it's the first week of April. MLS's window for additions closes on May 4th. So you've got time in that, but the day to be compliant for roster rules in MLS is February 25th at 6 or 8 p.m. Ricky Ricardo wants Atlanta United specific homegrown signing predictions by the end of the year. John.
Hell yes. This is the drugs I need in my vine.
Settle down, Jarrett. John's first.
Let's see. Caleb Wiley, Noah Cobb.
Noah Cobb? Really? No, I don't think
Damn,
he's close.
son.
No. Wiley, yes. I think Wiley's just a matter of time. I got no problem with that. We'll take Wiley off the board for you, Jarrett, because that's
there.
easy.
You go.
Noah Cobb, I do not think is that close. He's still very young. I think Garrison Tubbs is closer to a homegrown signing than Noah Cobb, and Tubbs is at Wake Forest. I just think Cobb's got a lot of room to grow. He's got the potential for sure, but he's still got a lot of room to grow. Jarrett, who you got?
Well, you took Wiley off the board. The Wiley's the obvious one, especially depending on what happens with George Bello.
Right, Wiley could be signed before the year starts.
Yeah. Because if you'd asked me last year, I would have said hopefully, but foolishly, Bryce Washington. But I don't know if I really expected it.
Well, no, Bryce is on a homegrown deal, Jarrett.
I know what I said was, if you had asked me last year, I would have foolishly said him without honestly expecting it, and then it happened. So it's hard to predict these things sometimes.
His was actually pretty expected at draft time, because that was part of the conversation, because he wasn't in the draft. So that made it at least to a point. And last year was weird because of the spring season. So yeah, there was probably a lot of guessing, but he wasn't part of the draft eligible group, which I had as at least there was talk he was going to sign after the spring season. So last year was weird. I think I thought it was a done deal, or pretty much a done deal going into this point.
Trying to think who else would be available.
I don't know who else is close on a homegrown deal, to be honest, outside of Wiley. Like close.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to think.
Mejia possibly would be the one.
Yeah. Mejia would make sense. I'm trying to think if there's anyone at college we're missing.
Tubbs is the one in college that I think is the closest.
If he hadn't blown out his knee, and this wouldn't be a homegrown deal, I could have absolutely seen James Brighton on a twos deal if he had been able to. He had stayed healthy and he was producing. And
it still could be. You still could see that in the next year. After the college season next year for sure. The question will be, does he go into the draft? Because that's the same thing that happened with Asensio from a timing perspective here. Is Asensio was draft eligible, and I think one thing to keep in mind that was maybe left out of the conversation because I saw some people saying, why didn't Atlanta draft Asensio? I think drafting him with the first round pick would have been a reach, and you get a Generation Adidas guy. You take that, no question. With Danny Centeno, as we've learned, he wants to be Danny, not Eric. Danny Centeno. But Asensio was picked before Atlanta's second round pick, so you couldn't get him there, and he was going to be invited in. It sounds like if he hadn't been picked, so they liked him, they just didn't like him as much as the picks fell.
If you want other random players from college, I don't know if these guys will go, but maybe keep an eye on them in case they end up with a Tuesday deal or something. Is Dylan Gaither was here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Gaither's had a really good college run at Mercer.
Yes,
Gaither is somebody.
So is Takuma Suzuki over at Wake.
I think he's further away from it. I think he's a good player. I think he can have a USL championship level career, maybe. I worry about athleticism a little bit with him. I think out of the guys in college, Gaither's a really good shout because he's a little bit of a wild card. College guys, Tubbs is the one that I'm probably paying the closest attention to. Kendall Edwards, you have to pay attention to as well.
Kendall Edwards is thank you. The guy who keeps sticking in my head, I don't think is one, but I remember seeing him and liking him when we saw him as Neil McDonald. I think he went to the Northeast to play, but I don't think he's that close.
He's moved around a little bit. Brandon Claggett just left Pitt and went to Northwestern. He was one who got some time with the twos. Gaither is the wild card because he's at Mercer, which is a little bit lower scale program than some of the other ones that guys are at, but he has excelled. He has absolutely excelled. So keep an eye on that one. Tubbs and Edwards and then Gaither would be the way that I would rank them out of the guys in college. I saw people talking
about. Oh, go ahead. I saw guys talking about Asensio. I don't know how well Asensio has or hasn't done.
He's done well, but he's done well. He's been very good, but he's a left back. You have Bello. You have Gutman. You have Wiley. Yeah. You're not going to go prioritize him because of what you already have at left back, and that's always what this comes down to. And you get attached to players, or you like the local kid coming good, but you can't build a roster based on sentiment and expect to win. You have to do it based off what the right moves are for the club. And drafting Asensio before he got picked so he comes to Atlanta would have been a bad move because Danny Centeno is a Generation Adidas player. There's a higher upside there. He was picked before you picked second, so you weren't able to pick him second. I don't think you would have picked him second either with what you had. If he'd fallen into the third round or the compensatory, maybe there's a different conversation, but you're stacked on the left side. It wouldn't have made sense. I think out of the other guys, potential homegrowns, Mejia is the closest for me. I think Mejia is special. I really do. He's been with Peru's U20s here for a little while in preseason. He's trained with and against the Peruvian senior national team. There's some very loose reporting that the young MLS-based guys, and most of them are academy guys. Mejia is the only one on a pro deal, I believe. Peruvian clubs have been very interested in bringing those guys in. So Mejia again's on a pro deal, so you'd have to do a loan or a transfer. But I think there's good plans for Mejia in 2022. I really do here in Atlanta, and I think he could be on that track to a homegrown deal.
He is a problem.
He's special. He's a special player.
The reason they locked him down when they did.
Yeah. I hate to make comparisons, but he is that crafty potential 10 who can score goals for you, who can play out wide, as we see a lot of playmakers do in the modern game. He just makes things happen. And I think he's just going to get better. So this is a big year for him. I'm excited to see Mejia this year with the twos, and that full schedule is out now, by the way. And there's a bunch of midweek games. I don't think USL Championship had any interest in making a fan-friendly schedule for the MLS second teams that are still in the league. I think they were looking out for the weekend dates for their independent teams, which I get it. I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. A lot of Wednesday games for the twos at home this year. Reyes is another one, I think, who will get a homegrown deal if he continues developing the way he is, but there's no rush. because you have Garces there, you have Brad Kazan in place, you have Dylan Castanera now on a first-team deal. Sounds like there could be another one. Reyes, if he continues developing and ends up being what I think most people think that he will be, he'll be on a homegrown deal because it'll be too good a business to not have him on a homegrown deal. But he's on a twos deal right now, so you're in good shape. I think the other guys that we've seen from the academy playing with the twos are maybe a year or so away. Like Brendan Lamb, I think maybe possibly could be somebody to keep an eye on. I think he's a little bit further away.
I can tell you that Jack Collison and the two staff, and the players as well, the veteran players, really like Brendan Lamb.
Yeah, I like him too. I like him a lot. I don't think he's ready for a homegrown deal right now. He might be one who does a twos deal first too. Depends on what he wants to do with college. I think the wild card this year is Nigel Prince. Nigel Prince has really come up here in the last year or so. Doesn't have a lot of USL experience. I think he could get a good bit of USL experience in the first half of the year before he goes to college. And they'll be able to make that decision, kind of like they did with George Campbell, who had committed to college, got the time early in 2019, impressed everybody, kept getting more time, ended up staying, signing a pro deal. Prince could play himself into that. But then you're also factoring in Bryce Washington's development because he's already on a homegrown deal. Potentially a guy like Garrison Tubbs and when he might leave school or if he leaves school early. Noah Cobb's development as well, but he's, I think, further back in that pecking order right now. Kendall Edwards, his potential, because those are all center backs. So Prince is competing to get a pro deal, but he's also competing with the other guys kind of in that group as well. But Nigel Prince is one to keep an eye on as a wild card. There's your homegrown discussion. Pretty deep homegrown discussion, actually.
That was the fun part of this question is how many different guys did we mention? A dozen?
Yeah, there's a lot of potential guys. So for anybody who's trying to create a narrative that the Atlanta United Academy is not doing, year. Yeah, but anybody who's trying to create a narrative that Atlanta United's Academy is not producing talent, stop. Just please stop. They obviously are, and you have a homegrown in the national team and a homegrown who has been linked very nebulously, but has been linked with potential moves to Europe. Your homegrown development's doing just fine, and just wait till George Campbell plays more, and then we'll have that conversation again. Okay.
Jesus.
Yeah,
George Campbell's going to eat someone on the field.
I am the one, maybe not the charter. I think I might be. No, I will claim it. And I'm sorry, Jarrett. I am claiming it. I am the charter member of the George Campbell fan club.
Yes, you are. I'm the charter, and I have the Bryce Washington fan club charter.
You might have the charter of that one. I've got the charter of the Campbell one. I just will always remember seeing him for the first time in that Generation Adidas game where I went, because we called it from the balcony on the first field at the training ground. And after the game, I went down and waited outside for Tony to come out of the building to ask him, who is that guy? Because, wow.
Tony probably just laughed and went, yeah.
No, it was so early in the process. I mean, he was like, yeah, I mean, we're really impressed. But, like, they didn't know what they had yet because he had played in the midfield. Like, that was maybe the third or fourth time that he was playing center back for them, because he first played center back because of an opportunity in a tournament that they went to Mexico and played in. I think somebody got hurt. Campbell was on the roster, but he wasn't playing. They thought of him as a midfielder, and he got the opportunity at center back, and they're like, wow. And then the Generation Adidas tournament came up after that, and he got the game that I saw. And yeah, I mean, he was good then. He was super raw. We saw it in 19. That was, I think, 2018. So we saw it in 19 with the twos where it just got better and better and better. And he's this past year, impressive. So yes, absolutely. 4Card asks about the kid from Dalton that we talked about ahead of the draft. He did not get drafted. He's on a pro deal. He's a pro player with Chattanooga FC in NISA, which is a really good situation for him. I am curious to see what happens with him next. He'll get an opportunity to play a lot as a pro. It's Division III, and you can rank it wherever you want to rank it. We haven't seen MLS Next Pro yet, so I don't know where they'll fall into it. But I don't think NISA on the whole is as good product-wise, level-wise as USL League One. But he's going to get an opportunity to play. And if he lights it up, then you're going to get other teams who are going to be looking at him. And then Chattanooga can do some nice business and potentially moving him up the ladder, and we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But yes, he did not get drafted. Okay, what else we got? Yeah, Modaflow Mejia has been in Peruvian youth national team camps before. I think this is the first time with the U20s. And I mean, I've seen a lot of pictures of him there, so that's very cool. I don't know, man. He's just got something special about him. It's very, very cool. Very, very cool. Modaflow asks, do you see Bryce more as a center back or a right back, Jarrett, since you are the fan club guy?
I see Bryce more as a center back, but he's also kind of in that he's got that Anton Walks energy where I can play him center back in a 3 or a 4, and if I have to slide him out to right back, I can, and I know I'm not gonna have to hold my hat over my eyes.
Yeah. I think he honestly potentially has the potential to be better at right back than Anton Walks was. I think he's got more pace. I think he's maybe a little bit better once he gets into the final third, but I do think he's a center back. I think what he gives you is the really special ability to play 3 center backs, but do what we've seen a lot of teams start to do is have a right-sided center back who can function like a right back when time calls for it. He can get forward and really cause some problems. So Modaflow is claiming the rights to the Takuma Suzuki fan club should he sign. That is duly noted.
That's fine. I like Suzuki. Don't get me wrong, man.
Bad one, yeah.
Sorry, John, you were talking like a drunk robot. What did you say?
No, and I think Co has claimed vice president of the Aiden McFadden fan club.
Thank you. That one's a little bit different, I think, in terms of seeing him first. But okay, there were a lot of people who were on that one. Coco, I'll give you VP. That's fair. I'll give you VP. Burned. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics on it, but you might be right. What's that? What's that, Terry?
Some vicious negotiations on rights.
Yeah. Hey, I was, because I know Mike and Kevin Egan were both like, why are you so excited about the Aiden McFadden draft pick last year? And he's just somebody who jumped out to me in the scouting that I was doing ahead of the draft. He was somebody who was kind of like, well, if he gets picked, maybe he turns into something. He's better than I expected. First off, like, I didn't expect him to be able to do what he did last year. I did not see that coming, but I was excited about the pickup. I was very happy that he ended up here in Atlanta. Burned, I don't remember the details about how Campbell got the opportunity in the tournament in Mexico. You might be right that it was food poisoning, that somebody couldn't play and Campbell gets the opportunity at center back, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's how things work. That's how these things go sometimes. When you're a young player, you don't know exactly when your number is going to get called, and it might not be in the position that you expect. And Bryce is an example of this too. When Bryce came in mid-season last year to the twos, he played right back because you had a bunch of guys getting time at center back that needed that time. So you want to get Bryce on the field? Well, he's going to play right back. And he kind of figured out how to play right back on the fly a little bit. I thought he did pretty well. He's better at center back. But yeah, I think he's very competent at right back. And if that became a move for him, well, he could be a surprise there. He could absolutely be a surprise there. Will is claiming Jackson Conway. I was physically closer to his first MLS goal than anyone here.
I'm gonna dispute your claim because I was at Pace Academy that day.
I was too.
With the U16. Yeah, Jason and I were at Pace Academy, the U16s, U18s, and I remember walking up the stairs and hearing some kid talking to a buddy of his who had played in the, I guess that would have been the U16 game. And I'm like, man, so-and-so was really good. And the other kid like shook his head and started talking about Conway and said like, no, that guy is the real deal.
I think, Will, you can claim being on the board of directors of that club. I think that's fair. But yeah, we've been talking of Jackson for a while now. For a long time.
That was also the first time I saw James Brighton. He was built like a T-34 tank.
Yeah. Oh, James
at like
Brighton.
15 years old.
Yeah. I've always liked James Brighton. I hope he can have a really good last year at Clemson and get an opportunity at the pro level, because he was special when we first saw him. That knee injury kind of slowed everything down. So we'll see if he can get back up to it. Will
He was
is
playing
yelling
adults
fine.
at Tormento too.
Yeah, he was. Question from Kefsey on Twitter about this, and then we've got 2 more questions, I think. Okay. I'm going to try to bring this down a little bit because John typed it up, and it's a little confusing. Which teams in the East and West will give up the most and least goals? I don't know what the rest of it is. Okay. So most and least goals in the East and West in 2022. Who scores the most in the East, John?
I'll go with New England.
Jarrett.
Jesus, I guess New England. I think Adam Books is the real deal.
I don't know if he's here.
I would have said Toronto if the players that they're bringing in July are there for the full season.
Yeah, no. Huh.
I'm convinced Dottie's leaving. Otherwise, New York City
I am
would be
too.
another shout.
Yeah, Kefsey, you did get John slated. That is true. I'm going to go with the easy portion of it, Kefsey. I'm sorry. We can go deeper if we need to on the Discord. I'm with you on NYC. I think Tati goes, and I don't think they score quite as much as they did. The other team that tied for second in goals last season is DC, which I would not have expected. But I don't think Ola Kamara does what he did last year either.
Well, is he going to get 12 penalties again?
Possibly. I think Atlanta will be in the mix, but I don't know if they'll be first. I think New England is the safest call here, so I'll agree with you guys, even though it pains me. Best defense in the East. Who gives up the least goals in the East? Not Ricky, not who scores the least. He's saying Cincinnati. Cincinnati will not give up the least, that's for sure. Who gives up the least is the way that I'm spending it. Yeah, well, he's got to give up less than 74 goals. That's a low bar, Jared. Oof. Best defense in the East, John. Who is it?
Nashville.
Okay. Jarrett?
New England. I think Matt Turner just keeps doing Matt Turner things.
I think New England will play pretty open. I'm going to go with Philadelphia. I don't like it, but I think that's the way they're built. They're not going to want the ball. They're going to play defense. They're going to counter. They're going to press. They've got a great goalkeeper in Andre Blake. I think they've got a very good back line. That could shift if they lose Kai Wagner. I am going to go with Philadelphia and not feel happy about it.
He's sick to his stomach talking about it.
Yes, I am, because I do not enjoy that philosophy. Anyway, goals in the West. Who is going to score the most? Jarrett, you go first. Nashville's in the West as well, Burn points out. So, John, you have to correct your thing.
Oh, yeah. Dude, it might be Nashville.
Hold on, Jarrett. You think John has to correct his. Who's going to be the best defense in the East? You say Atlanta.
I'll go Atlanta.
Okay.
Brad Gazan has a fantastic season in that.
I would like it. All right. So, Jarrett, highest scoring team in the West.
Buddy, I'm half tempted to say Nashville as long as Hani Mukhtar keeps doing Hani Mukhtar things.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I could absolutely see old boy from LAFC winning the Golden Boot, especially after what he did this year. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to have enough scoring around him to take that title.
They have right now, as they are currently constructed, they got plenty. So which one are you going with? Get off the fence. You're going Nashville in the West.
I'm not on the fence. My feet are planted in the Tennessee grass with a bicycle bar and a bachelorette party.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. Mm-hmm. John, who's going to score the most in the West?
Seattle.
I don't hate that. I don't think Kansas City scores as much. I don't think Portland scores as much. I don't think Colorado scores as much. I do think LAFC could be up there, and I will actually go with LAFC as the highest scoring team in the West. I do not think they will be the best defense in the West at all.
Correct.
I think they'll be maybe a little bit better than they were last year. But who's going to be the best defense in the West? John, is it Nashville? You said it. They were in the East. So why is that a woof?
Well, because it's Seattle in the West for me. So I'll go with Nashville, slightly better than Seattle. That's my 1A and 1B.
Okay, Jarrett.
I'm trying to think if something other than Nashville makes sense, because like in my mind I want to think about like a Portland or somebody, but Portland goes through those phases. Man, maybe. But Portland goes through those phases like every 3 or 4 games where they hemorrhage goals at such an astounding clip, and then they right the ship and they're fine. I like Colorado. That's not a bad shout. Nashville and Joe Willis. I don't like making that decision, but I feel like that's not a bad one.
I'm gonna go with Nashville because you look at the West, man. Defensively,
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, man. That's the thing. When I'm thinking about it, I'm like, there's a lot of carnage out here.
Yeah. A lot of teams gave up over 50 goals last year in the West, and I don't think a lot of them are going to be better. Like, you didn't have a Cincinnati out West, but like Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Jose, LAFC, LA Galaxy, RSL, Portland all gave up over 50 goals. I could see them all doing it again.
Yep.
I could see Minnesota giving up more than 50. I could see Vancouver being insanity. Kansas City, Colorado, Seattle are good, but I think Nashville's better defensively. So yeah, I think the Western Conference is going to be in for a wake-up call with Nashville going out there. I really do. That's going to be very interesting because they're different than these other teams the way they play. It's going to be very interesting. I'm curious to see how this works out.
I would also comfortably point out that this isn't your deck Nashville from 2 years ago still, and I feel like we made that point last year. Let's make it again just for fun. That Nashville's not going to just shell up there and try and win games 1-0.
No, I think early on last year they were super open and too open, and I think it was to try to recalibrate how they would be. I think they can lock a game down whenever they need to. And I think the biggest thing for Nashville, and I was on the Club and Country podcast earlier this week talking about Josh Bauer, but just talking about MLS in general. I think the biggest issue for Nashville, and I thought it was glaring in the postseason, is they need somebody with a killer instinct. They don't have that guy that when times get tough, you expect them to score that big goal. They got
played
good
with
players.
Their food a lot last year.
Yeah, you got good players, but you don't have that guy that you trust in that situation. And that's what they need. That's the biggest step. Does Hani Mukhtar turn into that killer? Does Ake Loba turn into that? I don't know, but they're going to need that if they're going to go to the elite lead, like the top. Like they're in the group of teams that we'll probably get into as we get into February, and teams are a little more coherent as to what they'll be. Teams that have a legitimate opportunity to win MLS Cup in 2022. Nashville's going to be in that group. But are they in not just that group, not just in the room, but are they at the head of the table in that? No, because they haven't shown that ability to win when the chips are down. And that PK shootout against Philadelphia was oof.
Oh.
And just beating Philadelphia in that game where they should have was oof.
Yep.
So we'll get into that type of stuff as we get a little bit later. We'll make all those kinds of predictions. Last one from Ricky. First coach leaving MLS for whatever reason, leaving for another job, firing, et cetera, et cetera. Who do you think the first coach to leave their current team is, John?
Almeida. Sorry, Jarrett.
Okay, you just repeated what Ricky said. You literally just read Ricky's comment. Can you give me an original thought? Or if you believe it's Almeida, tell me why.
I believe it's Almeida with Adrian Heath being a close second. I just think that with the erratic behavior that we've seen on and off the field with San Jose the last couple of seasons, I just think that if things start poorly in San Jose this year, I think that there'll be a point where they just sit there and sit there and cut their losses, and Almeida's gone.
I don't think it goes down like that, but you might have the right answer, or Ricky might have the right answer that you've stolen from Mr. Ricky Ricardo.
I've stolen it from Mr. Ricky Ricardo. I
did. You read it. You read his comment. Jarrett, first guy to leave. Who is it?
Phil Neville, and it'll be a damn shame.
I don't think it will be. I think he's good. I'm not actually worried about that one.
I'm worried that they struggle throughout the year because they don't have the depth. And I do wonder if, he gets kind of, scapegoated for it.
I don't think so.
Otherwise, Almeida's a good shout because, it's
let me
it
come back
hasn't
to
really
Neville
been
real
working.
Quick. Before we move to Almeida, go ahead. Because I've got thoughts on Almeida too. But with Neville, I think what we've learned in the past year, maybe full year, is that in year one, Beckham was more hands off. And it was COVID year, and I think he was in England for a large portion of it. Phil Neville doesn't come to Miami without Beckham's involvement. There's definitely a relationship there that helps get that deal done, which I think will protect him because these are all smart soccer people that are smart. You look at this team and you look at what they're doing, they're not going to be competitive, and it's going to take them some time. And I think everybody's on the same page. I thought Phil Neville did a good job last year to get what he got out of that team.
Yeah.
I thought
it grew into the year. Yeah.
Benching Matuidi and those guys when he needed to, benching Pizarro was a bold move that worked, and he kept them in the mix for a lot longer than they should have been. I think he's protected, so I think he'll be okay. You think Almeida could be the guy if it's not Neville? Why, Jarrett?
I think we discussed this already, but my thing with Almeida is the fact that I could definitely see it not working going into the summer. Jobs open up in the summer in Mexico, everywhere else in the Americas, and they decide, hey, this isn't working. Let's just get a clean break. You can look around for gigs, and I'm sure he would have offers all over the place if he wanted them. And it gives them a chance to kind of reset in the summer for the second half of the year.
Yeah, I think Almeida is very likely, and not as much because he gets fired. I think somebody comes in with an offer for him from Mexico, and it's the last 6 months of his deal, and San Jose, because they're not in a position to win this year, win the league, they take whatever the offer is. They let him go. I don't think he gets canned, but I think he leaves in the summer. Could anybody go before that is the question. Adrian Heath, I think, is a possibility, but I just don't really have a lot of faith in Minnesota actually pulling the trigger in that one. I think they probably should make that change. They should have made it already. He got lucky this past year to get into the postseason. I don't think they win with him, but I don't know if they make the change. We can run through it really fast. Robin Fraser's not going anywhere. Brian Schmetzer's not going anywhere. Peter Vermes isn't going anywhere. Giovanni Savarese isn't going anywhere, I don't think, even though maybe it is rebuild time in Portland. And does he want to do that? Vancouver's new. RSL's new. LA Galaxy, Greg Vanney's not going anywhere yet. And I don't think it happens fast enough to where he would go somewhere. Cherundolo's new. We talked about Almeida. Nico Estevez is new. Josh Wolf. I think they have to be realistic, and he's got time. I couldn't see him getting fired before the summer. Nagamura's new. So that's the West. Not a whole lot of candidates here. Bruce Arena's not going anywhere. Jim Curtin, I don't think, is going to go to Europe in the summer. So, he's not going to get fired, obviously. Smith's not going anywhere out west. Ronnie Dyla's not going anywhere. He just won MLS Cup. Gonzalo Pineda's not going anywhere. Oscar Pareja's not going anywhere. He got them in. They're actually trying to reload, it sounds like. So keep an eye on Orlando. Gerhard Struber's not going anywhere. He did a good job last year with the Red Bulls. Losada's not going anywhere in D.C. Porter's not going anywhere in Columbus. Wilfred Nancy's not going anywhere in Montreal. Talked about Neville. Chicago with Ezra Hendrickson is new. Bob Bradley's new. And Pat Noonan's new. There's not a lot of obvious candidates for this question, actually. Almeida and Heath are probably the two most likely. Neville would shock me because I think he's got protection with the ownership group in Miami. If I had to go with a really off-the-board take, it would be Greg Vanney in LA because I think there are high expectations. I don't think he's got the team to meet them right now, and that's not on him. But if anybody gets an itchy trigger finger, maybe it's the LA Galaxy. Maybe. Because I can't find anywhere else that it would be. The only other wild card would be if somebody came in and hired Jim Curtin. And I do not buy the take that there was no conversation had about Cincinnati coming in to try to hire him. If he's under contract and it's going to take money to get in, I don't think that came out by accident. And I think it's kind of funny that everybody dropped it all of a sudden when Jim Curtin said, "No, I'm not going anywhere." Oh, okay, cool, whatever, buddy. Does somebody in Europe come in and say, hey, we see what you're doing. You fit our pressing style. We'll bring you in.
Manchester United, come on down. No, I'm not serious. I promise.
No.
The only other wild card I could think of
him just getting on a microphone and cutting promos against Pep Guardiola would be astounding, though.
Yeah, it would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
What's your other wild card, John?
The only other wild card I could think of would be Caleb Porter in Columbus, because if you get off to a bad start, do the Haslams pull the trigger because you're in a new building, all those other elements that are associated with NFL ownership.
I think that would take him walking away, not the Haslams.
He won MLS Cup in 2000 or in 2020. Like he's not that far away from that. He had a ton of injuries last year. He's got absolutely valid excuses for what happened last year. No, he's not going anywhere. There's no way.
Like I said, literally, that's why my 1 and 2 were Almeida and Heath, and you wanted a wild card, so that was the only other situation that I could think of that could.
I just can't see that situation materialize to where he would go before Almeida, who's most likely in the summer. Like it'd have to be something catastrophic with them, and he might have to kick somebody, pull an Urban Meyer or something. I just don't buy it. I don't think that's going to happen with Caleb Porter. Man. Anyway, I can't think of anybody else. Like it's actually really weird that there's not a lot of hot seats around the league this year, at least coming in. So we shall see. Sam Williamson thinks Josh Wolf will be the first out. I think that'd be, if that happens, Sam, then I would go back and revise where I think Austin screwed up. Because Austin, by hiring Wolf, made it, in my opinion, obvious that they're going for the long-term build. Because you're hiring a manager who's never managed before. He's got extensive assistant experience. But you're handing over the keys to him. If you're expecting him to win in year 2, then your expectations are completely ridiculous. Just completely ridiculous. And no, Emilio, what happened with FDB, I don't think compares to Caleb Porter's anything potential with him or anything else. I think you have to lump a whole lot of special circumstances in with that. And I don't think there's been any talk, as there was here, about Caleb Porter with a bad relationship with the roster. Not buying it. I think Almeida is the most likely to leave to have another opportunity, and he's at the end of his contract. And I think Adrian Heath is the most likely to leave realistically because of bad performances and where that team should be. I think those are the two obvious ones. I don't think there's a whole lot of other hot seats. I don't. Really weird. And I don't think Savarese would leave now. Like if he had left at the end of the season last year, I wouldn't have been shocked. But I don't think he would leave now, and I don't think he'd get fired either. So, yeah, weird. There's just not a lot of hot seats. Normally, you've got like 5 or 6 that you come into a year with. I don't think that's the case this year. You got a lot of new guys, so maybe all the hot seats get blown up. Who knows? Yeah. All right, games this weekend to keep an eye on worldwide. Today, you've got a couple games going on in AFCON right now. Morocco is 1-0 up on Comoros. Malawi and Zimbabwe are 0-0 first half. You got Brighton and Crystal Palace at 3 o'clock. Curious to see if Moises Caicedo makes the game day roster for Brighton. Borussia Dortmund and Freiburg in the Bundesliga at 2:30 on ESPN+. 2 games in Mexico. Querétaro hosting Pumas. Necaxa hosting Monterrey tonight. Tomorrow, Nigeria and Sudan in AFCON. Guinea-Bissau but playing Egypt in Cameroon. Egypt has to get something out of that. They should. If they don't, then their campaign is in big, big trouble. Big trouble. Premier League, 7:30, the early game tomorrow, City and Chelsea. Newcastle's hosting Watford in a big relegation battle. Whoa. Newcastle loses that. Come on, man, Eddie Howe. Come on. Got to be kidding me. Norwich hosting Everton, Wolves hosting Southampton, Villa hosting Manchester United. We'll see if Manchester United doesn't put everybody to sleep at 12:30. Bundesliga, Union Berlin hosting Hoffenheim, Mönchengladbach hosting Leverkusen, Wolfsburg hosting Hertha, Stuttgart hosting Red Bull Leipzig, RB Leipzig. Köln hosting Bayern in the 9:30 slot. Bayern has a bunch of guys who are out. If you haven't seen the news on Alphonso Davies, he is having some conditions related to having COVID before the signs of mild myocarditis, according to the follow-up examination from anybody who's ever had COVID, according to Julian Nagelsmann in his press conference today. Not training right now, won't be available for the next couple of weeks. None of the players who have had COVID are 100% fit. A couple had symptoms. Upamecano, Tanguy, Sané, Richards, and Neuer are back in the squad. Neuer is ready to go, it sounds like. None of the others are ready to start or play a reasonable amount of minutes, according to Nagelsmann. Toliso's available. Lucas Hernandez, Kingsley Coman, Leon Goretzka, Stanisic all are still out. Bunassar and Choupo-Moting are away at AFCON. So Bayern is depleted as they head to Cologne. Serie A tomorrow, you've got Juve hosting Udinese, Lazio at Salernitana, Torino at Sampdoria. You've got Copa del Rey action going on. You've got more Liga MX. If you're a true degenerate, the Costa Rican League is back. You do have the Spanish ridiculous Super Cup. That's a tournament that's in Saudi Arabia, which is still ridiculous. It's all ridiculous. You have that going on this weekend. That is on Sunday, I believe. You do have the friendly with Colombia and Honduras this weekend. I don't know where that is available to watch, though. I'm going to check really quick to tell you, because there are some players you might want to pay attention to in that if you follow MLS. Let's see. We'll get to Sunday. Hold on one second. You also have Portugal in action too this weekend. You watch that on Goal TV, possibly with our friend Nino Torres. I don't see the Colombia Honduras game anywhere. I know somebody's got to have some rights to that somewhere. The Supercopa final is at 1:00 on Sunday. You have Arsenal and Reading in the Women's Super League at 9:30 on Sunday, and that is going to be on CNBC if you're looking to watch that. You've got Ligue 1 Marseille hosting Lille at 2:30 on Sunday. You got Liverpool and Brentford in Prem at 9 a.m. on Sunday. What else? You got more Liga MX action. ATA football if you want to watch the Women's Super League, if you want to watch the French top flight on the women's side, if you want to watch the Italian Serie A on the women's side. You can watch all that at atafootball.com. Free. I think you have to register to sign up for it. You can watch all of that. You've got AFCON all weekend. You've got friendly starting in South America this weekend. ESPN Plus has some. You might want to check on your schedule on ESPN Plus. There is a summer tournament in Argentina that has some fairly big teams in it. It's a weird little format to the thing, but it's preseason friendlies. Those games are going to be on ESPN Plus, and they've picked up some other South American friendlies. It looks like Colombia, Honduras, and Peru, Panama as friendlies are available on pay-per-view. So if you are an even bigger degenerate than the rest of us, have at it.
There's nothing friendly when South American teams have a friendly, though, is there?
Usually not. But when you're a couple weeks away from World Cup qualifiers, I think it will be friendlier than usual.
No one wants to die before a qualifier.
No, nobody wants to be deceased ahead of that. You also have this little game called Tottenham and Arsenal on Peacock at 11:30 on Sunday as well.
Literally,
Little game.
literally watched Arsenal just basically batten down the hatches for 70 minutes yesterday. That was hilarious.
Hey, I mean, when we've
It works.
seen it before, when you get that early red card in that situation, if you're Arsenal, it really clarifies your game plan. Hold on for dear life and get out of there because you got a second leg at home. They did it. They did a great job. Oh, and one more. Nyle, thank you. I had this on my list. We didn't get into it. Looks like Nani, former Orlando captain, Nani is headed to Venezia. Didn't see that one coming. I think he was doing a medical today, and that could be announced very quickly. They've done some really good things with some young talent coming through. I do have some serious questions about Nani's leadership because I thought it was very bad at times in Orlando, and I think Orlando fed off of it and had meltdown after meltdown after meltdown at times. And I don't know if that's the right fit. Obviously going to sell some shirts, and Venezia does a good job of selling shirts, but I thought they were really progressing past that and trying to build a team. And I don't know if Nani's the guy. I really, truly don't, but we'll find out. That's it for us. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. We'll have some content over the weekend on stuff. Keep your eyes peeled, and we'll keep you posted on what that could look like. Preseason starts, at least in some form or fashion, for Atlanta United on Sunday with testing and with medicals if people can get to the facility. Get stocked up on milk and bread this weekend if you're in the Atlanta area, because it's probably all sold out at the grocery stores.
I'm shopping on the way back home when we drive on a Sunday afternoon. So we're
It's all going to be gone by Sunday. John, what are you talking about?
Oh, no, I mean
It's supposed to hit Sunday.
No, the milk and bread's going to be gone by Sunday.
No, but what I'm saying is that we're leaving.
I don't care. I know what you're saying, but you're going to be shopping for things on Sunday, and it's going to all be gone. Because everybody's going to be freaked out.
North Florida and South Georgia, where they're not having the ice and snow.
If they mention there might be snow within a 100-mile radius, they're going to sell all the milk and bread.
Well, then we'll stop at the Buc-ee's and Warner Robins and stock up.
John's going to find himself a pig.
That's what he's going to have to do.
That's
milk a cow himself.
About 200 yards off to my right.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Y'all be safe out there. If you do have to be on the roads on Sunday, be careful. And hopefully it is on the smaller side of these projections. Even if it's on the larger side, I think it's supposed to warm up on Monday, which will, again, wreck my allergies. So hopefully I'll be able to speak by the time we get to Monday. Fingers crossed. Plenty of stuff to watch this weekend. Hope you enjoy it. We'll talk to you next week. Mooch plot, y'all.
Mooch plot, y'all.
Mooch plot, y'all.